word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes, as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. This week, that would be from chapter 1 of Demon in White all the way through the Devil's Coterie, aka
Cohort.
Cohort, the Devil's Cohort, chapter 9. And that's book 3 of the Sun Eater series, not to mention Queen Amid Ashes, as well as Demons of Ra, and also The Lesser Devil. All things we've read so far in the series. So if you haven't read all those things, it's probably fine. You'll figure it out.
3, 2, 1. Hey there, this is Cross.
And this is Josh.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club.
Yep. As long as you think about us.
Yeah, as long as you're thinking about us. Importantly, thinking about people, you may, if you're watching this, notice that we might be making funnier eye contact than usual. Obviously, this is in part because we both have silly and different setups.
Yeah.
And we're kind of working it out. I'm at a friend's house dog sitting, and Josh is still working out how to set stuff
like
up.
One of these going on, you know?
Straight out of Mr. Deeds.
Exactly. So.
But yeah, so we're working out exactly what to do, what everything looks like.
Mr. Deeds full screen. Man, I thought we were watching Scooby-Doo.
The Dr. Pepper fountain will never be like forefront of my mind.
Yeah. I think we should
Like,
just call it and watch Mr. Deeds instead.
You know, that's a great point. It's got about as good vibes. This week is pretty good vibes from a reading
good vibes.
section.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, nothing terrible happens.
To start off the story. That said, today is our first episode talking about Demon in White, finally, by Christopher Rocchio. This week we're reading Behold the Pale Horse through the Devil's Cohort, roughly 9 chapters. And with that, let's do a quick check-in on how you're feeling, Josh. How you feeling about this there book?
Not like that. Yeah, no. Rocchio doesn't start 2 books the same, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, Empire starts so, like, melodramatic, as Hadrian is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit Howling Dark, and they're like, guess what, bitch? You're in an 80s cyberpunk action flick. And then you hit this one, and they're like, what if you were in, like, a cool, like, political maneuvering sort of like I don't know, it's just very different. It's very kind of a slow setup, but it's nice. It has kind of like a fun vibe to it. Everybody's kind of got like knows where they are in their position. Everybody's kind of like fallen into this routine. Hadrian's starting to like build a name for himself, but it just, the tone is so and wildly different at the start of each of these 3 books. And where Empire of Silence took forever to get anywhere, Howling Dark hit the ground running and didn't give you any time to catch up. And then this one's just like a very classic setup scene, you know? So it's interesting that they all take very different approaches on how to kick off the story.
Yeah, I do think that there's something to be said about, like, I think we would all be pretty mad if we didn't get to see, like, Hadrian get knighted, right, for instance, as an example of, like, even some of the, like, flashbacky nature that's here. And I think I mentioned this when we were reading, and you mentioned it, I think, too, during Demon of Ra. It almost feels like you should append this story with Demons of Ra, right?
Demons of Ra feels like the, like, prologue to this. It should be just in this book. That's the big action set piece that kicks it off. They even talk about Demons of Ra like they assumed you read it.
Like a
this
lot.
whole section.
Yeah.
That's a wild, like, if I didn't read Demons of Ra and they were just like, and then we found evidence that the Extrasolarians were making robot seals, and I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? When? Did I
like,
skip a chapter?
Even Queen Amid Ashes gets less mention here than, you know.
Like, Queen Amid Ashes is very much so its own standalone little episode of TV, but Demons of Ra needs to be in this. Hey, if you are someone who's following along and reading these, but was like, I'll skip the standalones, the short stories, the collections or novellas, probably fine. Read Demons of Ra, because it's the first chapter of this book. I don't know why it's not there.
It's one of, I think, 4 or 5 short stories that we are guaranteed to read on the podcast. A couple that, I mean, notably, I only read the mainline books and the novellas, and then a couple of just random short stories while waiting for the 7th book. You know, not intentionally, but like in order. I only read the main stories and the novellas, and then picked up the short stories later when I was waiting for the final book. So like, yeah, I don't know if that means that I think that they're more necessary or not, but I do believe that some of them now add so much good context that it's like, man, you kind of want that.
Yeah, it's probably, I would assume, the same feeling I get like going back and rewatching the theatrical versions of Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I saw the theatrical versions as they were coming out, I was like, this is amazing. These are perfect. I love these films. They're missing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the extended editions and I was like, how did I even understand what was going on without all this? This adds so much context. Was I just vibing with the theatrical versions because we don't know what happened to Saruman? He's just,
I was going to say that's
anymore.
The biggest omission. Yeah, for
but
sure.
Also, just there's so much in the extended editions where I'm like, you just don't get any of that. You don't get like the tense conversation between Frodo and Gandalf whenever they're talking about Bilbo and him poring over old maps. You don't get like him freaking out about the ring being lost. This is all like right in the beginning of the movie. That very important context. You never see Isildur like being attacked. He's just all of a sudden is dead in a river with no explanation, you know, like, and it works. The editing's good and the narration's there and the writing's good enough to where like you just don't think about it, but whenever you see what it's supposed to be, you're like, yeah, that makes way more sense. And I feel like this kind of has that vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I feel like that is one of the things that kind of, I wouldn't say that it like throws me out of the story necessarily, but I think with too many of those, which I think that this beginning section has a lot of them, if we consider Are, Aptica, and then we get like a shotgun mention of Thagura, Kalas, and like 2 or 3 other battles that like we have no idea about outside of Thagura. It's kind of like, oh, okay, so you've been busy.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to see you be busy a little bit. Like I want to see that, a little bit of that. So it's nice to have RA to kind of fill in that space in addition to Queen of Ashes to give us a little bit of context.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it is a cool way to just kind of drop you in, and it's like now. All right, so I have 2 thoughts on it.
Yeah,
one is positive, one's a little negative. From a reader standpoint, just purely as a story, engaging in the story, it's fun to kind of be dropped in and see Hadrian just now having his legacy, and you're kind of like, it kind of puts you in the shoes of like the people who've just learned about the legend that is Hadrian, because you're just learning about all these things fresh, just right there. You didn't see them happen. You're just like dropped into like, this is Hadrian now. This is the legend that he is. This is the story. The negative is like, this story is being written by Hadrian. It feels weird to just skip all that. Like the guy took so long to tell us about everything. It feels weird that he made the decision to do a time jump, you know? Like, because in my mind, Hadrian's not writing multiple books. He's telling a story. So it's weird that just randomly in the story, he's like, wouldn't it be dramatic if I just skipped all this shit? You know?
Yeah. So this is something that kind of, it gets touched upon in some, like later things that are sort of, I don't want to call them extra textual, but if we think about like the Book of Red Marsh from a Lord of the Rings perspective, right, where it's like, this is the tome that is originally translated, yada, yada. It's pointed out that like there are 7 volumes, but there may be missing ones interstitially. So it's like broken up. And so maybe there's just some missing stories in there, which also gives Rocky a license to go back and fill things in whenever he wants. Which is kind of neat. But I don't think that it fully excuses the thing that you're saying, which is that it's not a perfect, like, I want a little bit more of that experience, which I'm glad that we get Queen of Ashes and Demons of Are, because we do get a little bit more meat on that bone, particular bone.
I just love Hadrian at the end of time in his monk jail cell with his vermilion ink being like, all right, but then I'm going to split this up because I really need something to publish between these 2 books. You know? Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna pad out my release schedule with a couple of short stories, you know? Which knowing Hadrian, it's not that out of character.
yeah. Yeah, I tend to think it's just like edited pages found or whatever, but it is very funny to imagine kind of the same sort of thing where it's like, okay. That said, ready to talk about the chapters?
I'm ready.
Cool. So we start off with "Behold a Pale Horse," of course, which is the start. Horse, of course, is the starting chapter of the novel. I love the way that he's opened these books, right? And I don't think that I could point it out quite so directly when it was only 2 words, that have been used since. But it seems very clear that each novel at this point is going to start with a single word. So our first word, Empire of Silence, is light, describing the son of Gadon. We get darkness here, and then we get silent, or we get darkness and howling dark, and then we get silence here.
Interesting.
What do you make of sort of the first choice, and any thoughts on what that spells for the rest of the novels, given the sort of way that first word relates to the other novels?
Light, darkness, silence.
The Fire Nation attacked.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what the 4th element would be. Light, darkness, and silence. I assume loud. No, I actually didn't pick up on that at all, and that's on me. But that's very cool. Wait a second, let me check this shit. Check. I was getting clowned on that it looked like it was printed whenever we were doing our Queen of Mid Ashes, like it was a print of the book, not the actual book. Do you remember that? She was saying like, "Oh, is that the actual book, or is that just the picture of the book?" Yeah, right. So I had to pick it up and prove this is an actual.
Right.
Oh,
I remember that.
Silence. It's crazy. Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to peek ahead and look at all the first words.
But what do you think that spells for the book itself?
If Empire of Silence was light, Howling Dark was darkness. I don't know. It's weird because like I wouldn't call Empire of Silence a particularly light book. Howling Dark definitely had a lot of darkness, but like what? Howling Dark existed in the dark space between stars.
Mm-hmm.
Empire of Silence was very focused on that future light. Silence. This could be a book where maybe Hadrian starts off very strong in his position and status. Maybe Hadrian finds himself no longer with the reach and voice that he has had for the last couple 100 years. Hadrian could find himself silenced amongst the universe.
Yeah. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I was just curious, especially given first words, first sentences are often, especially important or impactful. And I think it's unique in particular that Rockio completely bucks the first sentence trend, basically.
Yeah.
With a single word each time.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I skip the first page of every book I read, so.
Right. I mean, that's just the way to do it. Angie Kills a King must have been really weird.
Yeah. Well, the first page is always just like, oh, there was a wind and it was blowing in the west and then the east, and then it was going by some horses, and then the wheel of time turns, and like, I don't know, you skip all that shit, and then you just start off with the Forsaken bickering to each other about like who has the hottest servants. It's great.
Absolutely. Super much, very much the way you want to do things.
Yeah.
So this novel does start on a very different beat, as well as suggesting that our world has significantly changed, as we're immediately greeted by the visage of the Emperor and a single soldier, Carex, of whom recounts his experience surviving Siriani Doreica. There are multiple ways that this is pronounced over the course of the series. I don't care what you do. Doreica is how we have the pronunciation said just throughout this book, and then otherwise it's said now I can't think of the way that I generally say it. Siriani Doreica. So Doreica or Doreica, those are generally the accepted pronunciations. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. Rukin says it Doreica throughout this book, and then I think he switches in every future book to Doreica. But we kind of get this idea of Doreica as Hadrian recalls his visions of brethren in the moment.
Yeah. So Syriana Doraya. How do you want to say it?
Doraica or
Doraica?
That's how I say it. Doraica.
Doraica.
Yeah.
Doraica. Just help me out because there's a lot of information here.
Yeah.
That's the like new scary Cielson prince that's differenter than the other ones, or
yes, it's specifically also the one that Hadrian relates to and realizes is from his vision. This is the one that he saw with man chained.
Yeah, this is the one that is like doing things differently and that are worried about. This is the one.
Hadrian even mentions the whole thing about like, was he wearing a silver crown? You know, very specifically to call out that detail, kind of interrupting and speaking out of turn.
Yeah, and everyone's like, you can't do that. Yeah, this it's a pretty I don't know, it sets the tone for like the menace of this character really well. It starts with like literally the emperor hearing somebody out who's like shaking about it, you know, like it's a very visceral scene that's cool of like, this is the survivor who was allowed to survive to go take the tail back of the one who's going to tear down the empire. And it's a good way to set that expectation for this, what I would assume would be a pretty ongoing major antagonist, which we kind of don't have at this point in the series. We don't have a main antagonist.
Yeah,
like the Cielson as a whole,
generically. Yeah,
and even the extra Solarians as a whole, or even the Empire as a whole, you know, like, but not really just like a singular person or entity that is like, that's a problem. It was Arnada, I guess, but not now. So
right. Yeah. There was definitely an element of it being Arenata for so much of the last book, right? And like tracking him down and sort of the Cielson Prince deal with kind of learning that from Tanaran. There are some interesting things that we'll get into more about Doraica in just a little bit here. But I'm curious about your impression of the Emperor initially. We get more into him in the next chapter too, but when you saw him, how'd you feel?
It seems in my mind like this is someone who has kind of been trained all of his life, like was bred and created to be an emperor. So of course it's going to seem this way, but he actually kind of seems chill comparatively to like what you might expect the emperor to be, at least towards Hadrian. And like even like the plebeian that's like groveling, telling his story, all of the like courtiers are like, get on with your story, you're in front of the emperor. And he's like, no, we brought him out here to tell us the story. It's okay, tell your story your way. Like, he's not a pure tyrant in person, I guess, you know, like there's definitely some tyranny inherent to the empire, but he's not. Look, my standards for leadership are really low right now.
I'd take a presumed god emperor any day
for sure. Right now,
this presumed god emperor.
Sign me up. I'm right there. I'm making the sun disk.
Whatever forehead, lips, heart thing going on. Yeah,
freeze me up and ship me to space, daddy.
The three-finger thing too. That's apparently I don't know. That was finally. It was finally kind of. I had never really known exactly what the symbol of the sun disk was outside of like the forehead, lips, heart thing, but now knowing that it's kind of like I don't know, like a three-fingered kind of thing. It says final three fingers, so I assume that means that's either like this or this.
Like an I'm not sure kind of thing, but like
palm facing out or in. I'm not 100%. But finally, kind of having a little bit of that realization was neat here throughout. The
it's just like none of us realize it's just But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the guy. I also know that I don't, you know, but as he's presented here, I think Hadrian even says in a later chapter, like, the Emperor's not so bad. Everybody around him sucks.
Right.
I do assume that the Emperor is that bad, is the worst of the worst, is like the problem. I mean, the book's called Demon in White, and he's right there in the front wearing a white robe, but like, but yeah, he does a good job of being a statesman who makes you feel comfortable and safe around him.
For sure. Yeah, he lends himself to be very interesting as we're introduced to William A. Vent here. Again, I mentioned obviously Hadrian speaking up a little bit earlier here, but I love the words that Doreika leaves Carax with, which is "Tell your master I'm coming," which is just horrifying considering everyone else was killed. Also, how did this poor man make it back? You know what I mean? Like, how did he? Did he just get in like an escape pod and like sit in it for decades?
He's like, "Tell your master I'm coming," and he's like, "Okay," and then he just got back in his fucking cryo tube. He's like,
Yeah.
"They'll find me."
Yeah. Extra concerning on that side of things.
He walks.
What? I get an almost like Green Knight vibe strangely out of this scene.
Okay.
And I say that from like the perspective of like obviously the Green Knight in this case is Doreika and he's not present, but that fear of him is omnipresent in the room through Carax, and I kind of see like that Dev impression, Patel impression on him.
And Hadrian is definitely Dev Patel here.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna go find and fight Doreika, and then he's also gonna have a weird situation where the quiet is the ribbon around his neck that keeps him from being beheaded or keeps him from dying. But eventually, he's gonna have to remove that shit.
Yeah, eventually he's gonna have to grow up.
It's gonna be after he's done. At the end of the last book, he's gonna be like, "And that's what happened." Remove ribbon, head fall off.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch The Green Knight, because I think I've talked about it. I did not enjoy that movie as much as I wanted to, but whenever I think about it, I think the last 10 minutes of that movie are some of the best 10 minutes of cinema I've ever seen. I just didn't like the movie around it very much.
Yeah, uniquely, I really liked it both times. But I'm a sucker for what's his name. I'm forgetting the director's name right now. It'll come to me in a minute or two. But I've absolutely loved everything that he's done up through the Disney movies that he's done. Like he did the Peter Pan and Wendy movie, and I was like, that's a pretty good rendition of Peter Pan and Wendy. He did the Pete the Dragon reboot.
I never saw the Pete the Dragon reboot, but I used to love Pete the Dragon, the cartoon growing up.
Oh man, it's perfect. It's like exactly what you want out of it. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a little joy line.
I've never had anyone be like, "You got to watch Pete the Dragon." I've never heard anyone talk bad about it. I've just never heard anyone that's seen it, so I should probably go watch that.
Yeah, between that and like the Peter Pan and Wendy movie really getting squashed because of COVID. That really I don't think helped. But he's very much a one for you, one for me kind of director, which is why he just came out with what is it, Mother something or other on A24. The like, man, I'm trying not to search up anything that way I don't have to type, but it's and I can't remember. His name.
Do it.
Thank you. Damn, Mother Mary, I think is what it's called. Is the movie
okay? Are we man, they really don't put the directors up here early, do they?
No, I always go to Wikipedia like immediately. I'm like,
David Lowery.
Lowry, yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's he's good. Guy. I think he directed Ghost Story was his first movie, which is immediately when I like fell in love with Ghost Story style.
A lot. Yeah. Okay. This got to be making movies. It's got to be making some films.
Yeah, he does a one for you, one for me style, and I'm like totally into that.
Me too. I like that. Also, Mother Mary. Oh, that's with Anne Hathaway.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I did want to see that really bad. It looked like Black Swan, but cunty pop.
Exactly. Yeah, with Charlie XCX and Jack Antonoff as doing all the music. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to watch it. I haven't. I should go see movies.
I haven't either yet. I really want to.
There's like actually a number of movies out. Like I want to see. I know it's got very mixed reviews, but I want to see Obsession. I want to see Backrooms. I want to see Mother Mary. Like, bunch of things I want to see right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. There are a lot of movies that I want to see, but I've been traveling and working too much. So, soon this weekend. Actually,
I'm gonna go buy pants at the mall this weekend. So maybe I'll just see a movie while I do that.
Hey, there we go.
They're at the mall.
Yeah. Fair point. That said, we can move on a little bit from this. I love those visuals though, and I imagine some of those like very tight visuals with a lot of the impressions that I get of the Emperor initially, I kind of see through the lens of Lowry's presentation almost more than others. I just like that kind of like cutting and editing mentally. So, love his style. So Hadrian and Polino speculate about Doriaika, Siriani, whatever you want to call him, and his potential as an enemy as he's changed the Cielson game plan and playbook substantially. Polino and all of Hadrian's friends as well have also been elevated to the patrician class, we find.
Yeah, they are.
Healed and de-aged to become his long-term buddies.
Rocchio was writing this, and he's like, everyone's got to be hot. You know?
Everyone has to be hot, and I don't want to keep writing new characters to hang out with Hadrian.
Exactly. We got to just take the old guy and make him hot again. Like, I love that. I still think of Polino as one-eyed and old. Every time he comes up, and I have to remind myself, I'm like, Stone Cold Fox now, actually.
Yeah.
Like, hotter than he ever was in his youth.
Old.
Like, got like new bone structure. You know?
Yeah. It's just also in the way that he talks. He sounds old. You know what I mean? Like in his like lined, and I'm not even saying this from Rukin's perspective because I mostly read
just the way how he's written. Yeah, sounds like an old because he feels like an old man who got a new lease on life. Yeah, I feel like age in a world like this, you have to like take differently. So it's less about how long you've lived and more about how long you feel like you have left in a lot of ways.
Right.
So like because I could see if and you could get this in a lot of fantasy and stuff with like elves or something. Even if you mature at 30 years old physically, like if you think you have 1,000 years, you're going to spend a lot of time not really taking shit that seriously. You're going to maintain a youthful sense for a very long time. But if you think you've got 80 years, you're going to grow up sometime in there. And then if all of a sudden you get a few hundred more, you're still going to have all of the experience of thinking you were old. So like it's a state of mind where I think Polino is enjoying his new lease on life in his youth, but he still considers himself an old man, even if he's much younger than someone like Hadrian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this also, like, we see this reflected a little bit later with Alexander, right? I believe that, I can't remember if it's Polino, Krim, or even Hadrian himself who says something like he's 30, but he's still, like, very young, like, teen years practically.
I think Hadrian mentions it, yeah.
Which is also how we were talking about Hadrian in the first book,
and
right?
He mentions it, if I remember correctly, like, in comparison to himself. He's like, you know, I'm, like, 400 at this point. Or even more than that. I think it's been 400 years since he meshed. So he's like, or I don't know how much I think
he's like 100 something.
Yeah, I think it's been 400 years since a mesh, but he's like 100 something awake years. But yeah, he mentions like, I have to remember like I was a dumb kid when I was 30, you know, and as someone who's 30, so I get it, but like it is interesting. It's really interesting to see the way how this series plays with age and status together in a weird way. I don't know. It raises questions about like what causes maturity and age in ways that I haven't seen another series do, because it's always been like these people can live a really long time. These people can't. It's never been like, well, you could earn a longer life by doing something cool for the empire, and then they just make it young again. You know, like that's a very cool concept, and it does definitely like change the dynamics of how people would react with it.
Absolutely. And even in like a lot of fantasy series, as we explore like elves, like you're saying, I don't think that it's ever put into the fore so much in a lot of those stories. It's more like, oh yeah, they age in a longer time frame, and so they're more mature now. And like we don't really talk about sort of the impacts or the consequences or like reflect on that nearly as much, I think, here. But then you get the added dimension, like you're saying, of the ability for age to be an alterable characteristic about yourself. You know, your lifespan being something like that can be played with.
Youth is connected to status because youth is purchased. It's earned through what part of society you belong to. It's a very cool concept, and it like I think the closest thing I've ever seen to actually doing something like that is a not very good movie called In Time, starring Justin Timberlake. I
really enjoy In Time.
In Time is
not
good.
Yeah, It's one of my dad's favorite movies of all time because he loves the portrayal.
It's
of,
a great
like,
concept.
Yeah,
it's a great concept, and just like here, it brings up a different, interesting take on it. In Time is one of those movies that I think is so specifically just mid thousands, where it's like this insanely good concept, and then just the most mediocre execution of it.
Yeah,
I think Jumper fits right in there with it. I think Jumper is. I watched Jumper a bunch in high school. I loved that movie. It's not good.
Same. It's not good at all.
But like, oh god, the concept. I'm like, I want to just do that. You know, I want to be zipping around, even if it means Samuel L. Jackson's mad at me.
Yeah, and again, a great example of it not being Hayden Christensen's fault that the movie is bad.
Yeah, I don't even think it's Justin Timberlake's fault, and a lot of things are that guy's fault.
Very true. Very
Brittany
true.
would say most things are his fault.
Yeah, very, very true and likely accurate. I definitely agree with you there on all fronts. I really appreciate the In Time reference because I do think that's just a great example of like a short story-esque kind of thing that plays with the same concept.
Yeah, exactly.
As we're seeing depicted here, I think over the course of this whole section, because most of this section really deals with wealth, age, power. Like that's what this first section is really about.
Which is what Hadrian has tattooed across his chest, right?
That would
wealth,
be the
age, power.
But it would all be spelt poorly because he would have some monkey do it. You know, some red intis do it potentially. Saltus?
Oh my god, if Saltus comes back as Hadrian's tattoo artist.
Confirmed.
And I think he's blue, but you know.
Is he blue? I thought he was red.
The little prancing devil's red. I feel like Saltus was like a gray blue for some reason.
I swear he was.
I could be wrong.
We're gonna have to look this up. Yeah. We'll look it up. We'll look it up eventually for the fan art. Say, I swear
pause everything.
Got to figure out what color Saltus is.
I could be wrong, but I think Saltus was like a gray blue.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm doing the thing where I'm trying not to type it all this episode so that I don't get lost in other details. So we're gonna move forward. Yep. But
you know what? Get in the comments.
Yeah, get in the comments. Correct us, please. Carax sees Marlowe and spends a moment with him in the Eternal City. Also, such a cool scene and depiction of like a cool planet, city planet sort of deal. This is a Coruscant of a type. Which is really interesting. And there's reverence paid to Hadrian for his act of having killed 2 Stielsen princes, one that we're aware of, and one that we kind of learn over the course of this being killed at Aptica as sort of this bloodless win, before asking whether or not war might end soon, given everything in Aptica and otherwise. And we can see that in our own way and time, Hadrian's legend has grown even more over the course of his travel and exploits. The half-mortal has spread.
Yeah. I wasn't just looking up Saltus's color for sure.
I do have the Kindle editions and could do this probably easier.
No, I was listening. Yeah. We're talking about specifically Carax, yeah. No, this is a moment where you really do see the legend of Hadrian Marlowe. That's fun. It's similar to what we've seen a few times between the end of Howling Dark and now, where it's just like his reputation precedes him. He's kind of becoming his own religion almost to a degree. Yeah. I don't, man. It's like, it's a very interesting, exciting new thing, but I'm like excited to see where it goes. But every time it happens, I'm like, I don't have much to say about it other than, he's getting pretty big. That's dangerous.
Skin the color of ash.
Oh, so that would be gray.
Yeah.
Dark gray. We're both wrong. No blue, no red.
Yeah.
Just
no
gray.
Blue, no red. Yeah. Thick gray hair.
All right, real quick.
So there's a lot to be said about like Carax and the possibility here, and mostly like the idea of like Hadrian's legend having spread, right? Like it's clear among this individual soldier and like the deed that was done at Aptica, which is rumored to be this entirely bloodless sort of victory.
Yeah. It does definitely set up kind of what comes next with Hadrian realizing he's grown a bit too big, a bit too fast
Mhm.
for the comfort of a lot of these other upper crust, these other courtiers, if you will.
Yeah, especially the Palatines of the world.
Yeah, especially the
Okay.
big fat one.
Bourbon. We'll talk about him in a minute here.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll move in then to the firstborn son of Earth. Hadrian is marched into the emperor's presence by a full 20 knights wielding high matter blades, ready to strike him down at any moment as he walks through the dreamlike eternal city. To quote, the axis about which all worlds turned, as he describes it, before entering the Pinion Palace and the presence of the emperor himself once again, but this time just an audience for him in this most interior of chambers. There's also a description of the palace having like a Baroque and Rococo styles. I don't know how much you know about sort of like ancient architecture and what that looks like. I'm sure you know Baroque, but I didn't know Rococo.
Rococo sounds so familiar. I feel like I've fucked around with Rococo.
Yeah, it's also often called late Baroque. And so it's sort of like the bannery, papery looking French architecture style that is like most often associated with like King Louis and stuff like that in 1730s. Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
French palaces.
Oh, fuck. I love Rococo. That shit's sick. It's very that, and now that I'm looking at it, now that we're talking about it, I'm like, I know Rococo. Why do I know Rococo?
Yeah.
Heavily used all around San Francisco, which I grew up going to all the time. San Francisco has a lot of buildings that like have that Rococo style like scrolling along the side of it in front. It's also in New Orleans a lot, you know?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, two cities I love. And it's always right next to a liquor store, which is just the wildest thing, you know? Just to see like this amazing, like narrow Rococo 4-story like house that you know was built in like 1910, paying homage back to New Baroque. And then next to it's a place that's called like Dale's Liquor, and it's just like a cardboard box made in the 80s. I love it. God, I love America.
with the plastic checkout counter, you know, glass, and just not glass but plastic.
There's not even a neon light. It's just the one where it's like, you know, just a sign with like LEDs behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little freaky, but I love this sort of styling as we imagine sort of this interior palace, and we even see some like Baroque pieces of art throughout here. One that I'll mention a little bit later, but it's really really unique as far as like that styling goes. And there is this question that's raised of like, this is specifically when we get into his title. He is Windsor in exile, which is the English-British royalty monarchy name, and to be aping French styling, you know, in the end of this is like, what kind of interesting bastardization we have at like this fusion of empire in this far future.
Okay, so I was getting a bit of a theory here. Not a theory, but so I want to pull it back to one of the more, I guess, controversial-ish topics that we talked about way back in Empire of Silence, I think, where there was like a Peterson poll. And I was like,
Jordan Peterson.
That makes sense because like if he was like a major piece of like climate denial growing, and then eventually the earth burned itself out and they had to leave, that would become part of the religion. I think that there is an inherent like celebration of like Western European cultures in a way that like it feels like conservatism and white supremacy won, and then this is like the way longer than that like outcome, which is this like fascist solar empire that's worshiping their white god king, defined by being the palest of all of them, you know, like yes, like the French architecture, but he's using English credentials. You know, it all just comes down to this, like it all just kind of became white Europe, and that's what they like look back and worship in a certain way. So.
Yeah, which is also interesting because what the rest of the culture is blended from really is this sort of Eastern, like almost Turkish part of like the culture and society is more of like the cultural blend, and then you have the language which is English fused with a variety of Indian languages like Hindi and associated languages as far as that goes. So it's like it isn't just those things, but like there are elements of all these things that have survived and tucked themselves in. And most importantly, to that point, like there is this degree of that sort of like controversially, like the white supremacist side of things that did survive in a form, right?
Whenever
the
you
Western worship that survived in a form.
Whenever you kind of see that the imperial line is defined by like the paper paleness of their skin and stuff, like it's there. It's not like overly wrought, but like it's clearly there. So I think that to me, what it set, like all of these things survived because humanity survived collectively, moving out a lot of it at least, you know. So like these other cultures are going to permeate throughout this culture that moves forward, but like the one that's considered imperial, the one that's considered the highest of classes, it just keeps coming back to just the weird
Brits. Of course it's still the Brits.
Of course it's still the fucking Brits. Yeah, it keeps coming back to like a confused amalgamation of like a bastardized history of Britain and France and Norway. You know, like
yeah, it's interesting. And I should say that I would summarize it not necessarily as like white supremacy, but more imperialism.
And I don't think it's inherently white supremacy. I think it's just there's clearly white supremacist imagery and ideology that like they probably don't even think that way anymore at this point.
Yeah,
but I mean, permeated the society because of what they chose to pull from.
Yeah, in addition, I mean, it's worth noting that I don't think that there's racism has been traded for hierarchical classism, which again is borrowed from more traditionally like in India as it stands with a caste system, right?
Yeah, exactly. You bring in that caste system. I don't think like Balian Mataro's like seen as lesser than for being dark of skin, but I do think it's telling that the sign of the emperor's line and family, the Star Victoria, is very inherently Western European features. So there's it's not,
and red hair, you know, strangely, which is also not something that's valued in present day. You know,
no, they went full like the Scots are cool.
Yeah. Scots and Irish, which is interesting. Very, very counter in that way, you know, especially if we consider this to be English. And English historically were very anti-Irish and Scottish.
And it's cool because I just think the Jadians are way cooler, and I'm Italian, and I just assume they came from Italy because they just got like a very Mediterranean vibe.
They're very, in my opinion, I agree with you. I think they're a little bit more. They're like Spanish and Italian. Like they're
it's southern Eastern European. It's like you got the Spanish, you got the Italian, you got some Greek, you maybe have a little Turkish in there, but.
Jadians are way cooler anyway, and the Mandari, frankly, like I do, you know, we hate him for who he is, but I do love the vibe of Basander Lin. In general.
Yeah. I mean that. I think the Mandari are just the manosphere. That's where they got the name. It's just a bunch of fucking crypto military bros.
Probably not exactly that, but okay, yeah, sure, we'll take it. Before we dive too much further into the conversation that happens between the Emperor and Hadrian, of which I really enjoy, I figured I loved that we do see this knighting and hear sort of this intense knighting ceremony. I don't want you to read the knighting ceremony because even Hadrian thinks that it's too long and can't remember all of the parts of it, which is hilarious. That's such a good subtle joke. He's like, dude, I had to fucking look it up. I can't remember that shit.
Yeah,
which is funny because he made the oaths. Right?
I got this.
But I need you to read the title of of the Emperor.
All right, I'm just going to do the whole knighting ceremony. I'm going to go so fast though. In the name of the Holy Mother Earth and in the light of her son, I, the Sullan Emperor William of the Aventine House, the 23rd of the name, firstborn son of Earth, King of Avalon, Lord Sovereign, the Kingdom of Windsor, in exile, Prince Imperator of the Arms of Orion, of Perseus, of Sagittarius and Centaurus, Monarch of Orion, Magnarch of Orion, Conqueror of Norma, Grand Strategos of the Legions of the Sun, Supreme Lord of the Cities of Forum, North Star of the Constellations of the Blood Palatine, Defender of the Children of Men, and Servant of the Servants of Earth, call upon you to kneel. It's too long. I get that you're trying to do a power play here thing. It loses its power at a certain point, about halfway through.
I do think that it is so obtusely long for so many different reasons. I mean, I think that there's a lot there to potentially explore, and I think especially as we get into the Emperor more, we can maybe talk about that. But for the time being, it's just ridiculous. Like, it puts Daenerys to shame. And part of me thinks that's almost intentional to like do that and make a joke of it. Almost.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
As it was going on, I was like just kind of ignoring it while it was happening to a degree, and then I was like, still going? No, can't still be going.
And then there are all those oaths that follow, right? Where it's like, do you promise to blah blah blah? Do you promise to blah blah blah? Do you promise to blah blah blah? And he's like, yes I do, yes I do. Oh my god, I actually hate those people. I don't want to do it, but I'll promise it because of my friends. I'll promise instead for them. Yes I do, yes I do, yes I do. I forgot what the other ones were, so I'm pulling this out of a book. Yes I do, yes I do, yes I do.
Yeah, I like that he's like, I had to look it up. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I promised a lot of shit back then. I was only 400.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of fun. I really appreciate this scene and getting it right, especially out of place a little bit, getting this little mini flashback here, because I do think I would have felt cheated had we not gone there.
Yeah, I also just glanced at the next notes in the section. Mm-hmm. You have a very funny thing written.
Yeah, no, I know.
I was just like, oh, what's the next one line of notes?
Yeah. You know, I mentioned the like piece of Baroque artwork earlier, and it's described on the wall, and I immediately was like caught by it. And I was like, it depicted an icon of beauty rising from the sea, high-breasted and golden-haired. And my first thought, and I like literally took this down as a voice note in Las Vegas, was like, Aphrodite with the high breasts.
Yeah. The way I read it was like almost like very encouraging. You're like, hey, go off Aphrodite with the high breasts. Yeah, go girl.
Right. Yeah.
Get out there with like, your high breasted self.
Yeah. I was just
show
like,
how high those breasts get. Yeah, let's go.
I've never thought of describing breasts as high before in any particular reason.
The distance from the ground with no proportion to anything else has never come up.
Right. And in particular,
those puppies was straight up vertical. You know?
It's one of those. It's another one of those like good subtle things that Christopher every once in a while weaves in, where it's like, I'm not going to name the painting, but you know what I'm talking about if you know what I'm talking
definitely.
about. And so it's like, okay, I can very clearly see. Is it Botticelli? I think it. Maybe I can't remember who, but
I couldn't tell you who, but I'm pretty sure I can picture the painting.
I know exactly the painting, you know, on the clamshell with the seafoam at her feet.
Yeah, and the breasts that seem like they're at like a super church, and they're just like raising up to the Lord, you know.
I will never not think of that ever again. Thank you, Christopher.
Every time you see it, you'll be like, "Them are some high breasts, my girl. What are you doing with those things? Put them down a little."
You talked about this earlier a little bit, so I don't want to belabor the point necessarily, but is there anything else that you want to say about the Emperor and Hadrian's exchange here?
I like the familiarity. Yes, yeah. I like that there's a familiarity with it. I like, and it does feel manipulative in the moment to a degree, but like, he got me too.
Yeah, he calls him cousin. Yeah,
I was gonna say with the cousin, he's like he makes a point to be like, we're family, even though Hadrian is like what 10,000th in line for the fucking throne. Like, we're not really cousins. It's like me calling somebody else that I learned is also from Sicily. 3 generations ago, cousin. Yeah, maybe. But like, that's not really the point. It's just this idea that like this star has risen, so the emperor could feel threatened by him, or could bring him in as like, this is my cousin. See, this is the power of the Star Victoria. And it has this like, it's very well done manipulation, I think, of easing and familiarizing, but then also bringing Hadrian under him to then use him as his own kind of attack dog, rather than letting Hadrian become too much of its own thing, which maybe Hadrian is now becoming too much of its own thing.
Right.
But seeing the emperor work and set him at ease and be comfortable and confident, it's refreshing, it's nice, and it also shows how dangerous the emperor is, because he's not enslaved by his own ego. He can play whatever part he needs to play to get the results he needs from the people he wants.
He clearly understands that there is a game afoot, in general.
Yeah.
And we kind of get that vibe, especially, at his asks, right, that he makes of Hadrian, specifically like, hey, this is the mission that you're going to be assigned to. I'm assigning it to you specifically. I feel like you can do it. We're not quite sure if that's something that the emperor is putting on him or that one of the other administrators are, which we'll talk about in a moment. But then there's also the task of taking on Alexander, which clearly seems like a task that the emperor is putting on him specifically. And why for? As well as kind of ignoring, it seems, Hadrian's requests for Colchis and pretending like he didn't hear what he said before. You know, like there's
Can
this
I look
layer
at the
of ignorance.
books?
Yeah.
What? Can I look at
You
the books?
said
Oh, I didn't know
books?
you wanted to look
Yeah.
at the books. So can I look at the books at the what? Just keeps. He wants to look, but it's like, what's in those fucking books?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he being weird about it?
Yeah. But also, the emperor admits that like they have been hiding information, that they know that these attacks have been going on longer. Like there is this sort of like secret admittance that there are deeper secrets in the empire that we haven't yet uncovered.
Which like I think clearly, but also it's weird because if like Hadrian is like his number one knight, the one he's sending everywhere, what is he keeping from Hadrian? Does the emperor know? Obviously, like the legends have spread that he didn't die. Does the emperor know what's going on with Hadrian? Is that part of why he needs him to fail, possibly, as we'll talk about soon here?
Yeah.
Like, what of these mysteries that like are defining Hadrian's life in this world are already solved in that fucking library? But
we'll see if we get there.
Yeah.
Maybe. Cool. Maybe.
Do
you think we'll get there?
Nah. This book's gonna end. It's gonna be 800 years later on the next one. The emperor's dead. The library's burned.
Well, okay. The library could be burned, I guess, but Hadrian is on Colchis at the end of time. So like we know that he gets there eventually.
Oh, I didn't put together the name.
Yeah. Yep. It's
that's
the
where
same
he's in
fucking
prison.
place. Yeah.
Oh, that's why. Because he was just he keeps calling it the archives. I'm sure the name is mentioned, but he keeps talking about just the archives.
Archives at Colchis, I think, is mentioned twice in Howling Dark, if I remember correctly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's where he is at the end of time. Ooh, that's saucy. And now we also, as we will talk about in like one chapter here, maybe two, we get to see Gododin. So like,
yeah,
it's all kind of coming together. All of these places mentioned are starting to form up.
It's worth noting that at this point, the story was intended to be 5 books long. So this was intended as the midpoint.
So this is supposed to be, we're rounding halfway. We're going into the back half here.
Yeah. And then importantly, books 4 and 5 were supposed to be one book. Book 6 probably wasn't supposed to exist, or was supposed to be the beginning of book 7, and book 7 is book 7.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
As a reader, no spoilers. How do you feel about that? Do you think they could have been the original 5-book plan and it would have been better? Or
no, but I think book 6 and book 7 could have like probably collectively like 150 pages cut out of them, and it would be about the same.
Yeah,
but that's it.
I know a book or two like that.
Yeah,
Brandon?
I mean, like every big series kind of gets to that point, right?
Yeah,
and like more is good in a lot of cases. Like I like and appreciate having more, but simultaneously, there are points at which I'm like, man, I kind of wish that this would clip along.
Oh my
God, I remember some of those soft scenes fondly. So
it has me so curious because not to jump into another series conversation too much, but with Red Rising, like I'm so curious what's going to happen with Red God because apparently it's so fucking long. But at this point, like 6 books in, I don't feel like any of them need 150 pages cut out. If anything, I think that 2 of them could have 150 pages added. Like, so curious if it'll just be overstuffed or if it'll be worth it. I don't know. Because I feel the same way. So many books, whenever they start getting those super, super long ones at the end of a series, didn't need all that. It just needed.
But simultaneously, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I could cut specifically anything or like what I would choose to cut. Either simultaneously, like I'm wishing for an amorphous 50 pages or 150 pages to be removed from 2 books. What 150 pages though is really tough to say outside of
sure
there's one chapter in the final book where I'm like, you could cut that entirely.
I'm sure there's 3 pages collectively throughout just about every chapter where Hadrian just talks a bit too long, you know?
Yeah. But you kind of, in hindsight, and especially in reread, those sections fucking rule, man. I am
Sometimes
less likely
they
to
roll.
point them out.
Sometimes Hadrian talks, and I'm like, well, you just had to put it in a Hadrian section here, didn't you?
No, I know, but what I'm saying is like in hindsight now, at this point, I'm like, I get why you did that. Actually, that makes sense. Oh fuck,
Okay.
I see what you're setting up. You know, and a lot of it's not book to it's book to book, not with intra book or interbook. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. He's pretty clever with it. I'm not gonna lie, especially in the early books, he's cleverer with it than I thought.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. I do love the idea of like I feel like books are inherently less not books are such an intense time commitment that they're just less revisitable than almost any other media. So making a book series that is just a treat to go back through, that's pretty cool. So
yeah, thankfully, Josh, the two series that we are reading on the podcast that we're committed to at the moment are both treats on rereads. In particular, The Dark Tower is designed for rereads, I would argue. And this series, I think, is also just a treat on reread.
Good to know. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to do like read it in your own time and then like one episode.
Like do one book at a time,
after
revisit
a
it
second.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's part of what, it was exciting for PJ to have basically finished the series when we recorded the Empire of Silence episode, because he was able to reflect on that. And then afterwards was like, oh my God, it was so much fun to reread this because it's so interesting because XYZ, but I couldn't talk about it. And I was like,
damn.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk to PJ about this whole series.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll have him back soon. Maybe for like a bonus wrap up somewhere along the line, but it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, we can get into the Empire of Clouds. We then get into our War Council meeting attended by Lorcan Brethnak, Augustin Bourbon, who we've already talked about, and a couple more folks, including some others, but those are the two big names that are kind of thrown at us. As we look into the details of the missing legion, much to Octavia's chagrin and Hadrian's own internal strife. We get a bit of background on the House Bourbon that had turned against itself long ago when Augustin sold out his own father, Felipe, backing his uncle, Charles, the 54th for the throne.
I got a little worried on this chapter. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, is this whole book gonna be this boring to listen to? I don't know. There's something.
This is a short chapter. Thankfully.
This chapter is short. I listened to it 3 times because I just forgot to listen to it each time that I was listening to it. And it's not that anything bad is happening in this chapter. It's not well written. I think that it's well done in the way that they're trying to show you the monotony and like the miserable state that Hadrian has to live in when he's dealing with these fucks. And it's just so easy to start ignoring them as soon as they talk, which I think Hadrian also does. But yeah, I think my main thought on this chapter is fuck these guys.
Yeah.
And I always lock back in whenever Hadrian starts being like, you weren't there. But everything up to that point, they're just like, here's this person and he's important because this reason. And it's just going. It's just going.
I particularly appreciate this chapter mirroring our penultimate chapter, which is called Dream Evil. Is that really the name? Yeah, Dream Evil, which is sort of a similar kind of sitting around the table chapter.
But
one
it's
of the big
so
differences,
fun to listen to.
That one's fun and interesting because Hadrian is in control and in power of the situation compared to here, where instead he is sort of the little kid at the table. But simultaneously, to your point, both chapters portray the idea of like he has been in so many of these meetings over the course of so many years, and there's so many ways that you can paint them as interesting or uninteresting. And so I think that Rocchio also does a really good job, and or Hadrian, however you want to portray it, of getting us in and out of these scenes quickly with just the critical information and like not belaboring the point.
Yeah. So the one towards the end of the section that we read feels like whenever you and that feels like band practice. That feels like something that is a bit of a chore, and I've done it 1,000 times, but I love it, and I do it with the people that I like the most. This feels like a work meeting.
Sure. Yeah, like a Zoom conference call. Yeah.
With some fuckers in the company I don't even see day to day. Just the worst ones. And so my eyes are glossing over here. The other one, I'm like, this is a little tedious. We've talked about this song before. We know what we're doing. We've had this argument already. but like I'm there for a good reason. I'm having fun. I care about this. This one, I'm like, just give him the information and move on. And they give him the information, and he's like, that's not very much information.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is where he starts to realize he is being set up to fail, though, and I think
he
that's
believes that he is, and he's like, who's setting me up? Is it the Emperor? Is it these guys? Is it someone else? You know, there's that question lingering.
Who do you think it is?
One of them.
Ah, man, I was thinking it was none of them.
Damn, it might be none of them. Who knows? I did want to mention, this was like my one serious historical connection that I wanted to talk a little bit about. Nemavand isn't anything in particular outside of like a weird TikTok YouTuber or whatever the fuck. So that's obviously not it. But there is, and I know this because Rocchio's talked so much about different pieces of history and being really interested in, especially like Persian history and Byzantine Empire and things like that. So I'm curious if Nemavand is intended to mirror Nahavand, which is a battle that happened, the Battle of Nahavand, or over the city, also called Nihavand or Nahawand, between this is the Muslim conquest of Persia, back between like Mesopotamia, Persia, 600-ish, 640s, where the Sassanids took over and fought like the White Huns. And this was sort of like a big breakthrough battle wherein there was this sort of supply line that was broken, and Muslim culture really became a big part. I don't want to call this sort of was the end of organized Sassanid resistance, and then Islamic expansion happened into Persia and basically took over as the dominant religion at that point, and really transformed the region based on this one battle. So to me, with Nemavand being this thin line, as it's described, of being like this pathway that is uniquely important, I can't help but think that maybe that's a mirror, or intended to be. I mean,
I never would have
for the Cielson, but
gotten that pull, but that makes sense. That probably is where that comes from. I just personally, I think that the Ezio trilogy is like way better than Assassin's Creed 1, so I don't really pay too much attention to that era. But yeah, that's actually, I mean,
that Assassin's Creed series would happen after this. So
Assassin's Creed 1?
Yeah. That would happen
that's
after
crazy.
This. Yeah.
Because that one was so early.
Yeah, I think it's like 1100 though.
Probably. I don't know. Yeah. Like I said, I mostly played the Ezio trilogy. I'm Italian.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. The Ezio trilogy rules.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's the best.
So good. That Assassin's Creed to me is the Ezio trilogy, and then there's other stuff around it.
Yeah, I'm a Revelations truther. I fucking love that game.
Oh yeah. Revelations did Crystal Skull way better than Indiana Jones.
Absolutely. What a great pull. Anyway, that was the one that I wanted to bring up. I highly recommend for people that are interested, just read a little bit about the Battle of Nahavand. This is a Wikipedia level research. I hadn't heard about this, but I was like, it's got to be after something. And then upon doing a little bit of digging into the history, I was like, that kind of makes sense, and it's adjacent from like a naming convention perspective. So,
personally, also,
I just want to mention this is after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, like 10 years before, like. Prophet Muhammad died in 1632. This happened in 1642. So, like, relevant to the time frame. Anyway.
I was going to say, there have been times when I've literally rolled multiple category dice to try and come up with a fantasy name while writing stuff. So it could just be that. But I think yours is right, because it's so close to something that makes sense with it.
And he loves this period of history and sort of like the ideological pieces of interest. He's a big fan of like Crusader history. Not a fan of the Crusades necessarily, but loves the history. Importantly,
recently have decided I might actually be down for the next Crusade.
Yeah.
The Pope released his whole thing on AI, and I'm ready to suit up. I have a suit of armor.
Dude, it's literally Hadrian. It's literally the Butlerian Jihad from Dune.
Dude, Chicago Pope's got me ready to be a Catholic again.
This is the Americani fight. Yeah, we're ready to go. Man.
Like I said, my standards for leadership are low. I'm ready to sign up for a God Emperor. Yeah. He wants to fight AI. I got
the Chili Dog Pope has your number.
Exactly. Look, if the Pope drinks Malort on cam, I'm riding into battle for AI, like against AI. It's just I'm ready to go. So.
Absolutely. Okay, to get back to this chapter, notably, they cite that this isn't the first legion that they've lost out there, as mentioned. This is where we get our mention of RA. We get the information from RA as a reminder, and for people who didn't read it, you get to experience the shorthand of RA, which is sort of the merging of Cielson and Extra Solarian that kind of freaks them out, and also that these people don't necessarily believe in the immediate moment either.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, effectively it. This is where we just introduce that information. And again, if we didn't read Demons, I think that this would be more interesting and or impactful. But instead, because we read it, it's like reminder.
Gonna bring up, this is one of the times where I think that like it kind of sucks not having RA just attached to this book, because that's such a definitive thing. And I know that Hadrian kind of says what's important to know about RA here in this, where he's like, oh, you didn't see the state, but and this is one of those spots where I'm so curious what it would be like if I hadn't read RA reading this, because he's like, you didn't see the state of those soldiers, like you didn't know that they were already, what they'd become, that they were already dead, all this stuff. And I'm sure that's fine. It's just like a vague thing that we don't think too much about.
It worked for me at first blush. Initially, I was like, ooh, that sounds like horrific, but I'm not sure what that looks like. Yeah. But then having the details, I'm like, oh, this is way scarier. And I almost don't think you put enough emphasis on it.
Super shifts a certain point in the conversation. The way, to me, how RA is name dropped here feels like you should know it. Like it feels like it was intended to be a part of this book. In the sense that I think that if you haven't read that short story and you read this, it becomes a reveal that Hadrian's been through some shit and seen some dark things. And these people don't understand that, but we don't really understand it either. If you have read it, it becomes that moment of, oh shit, shifting of the conversation where you understand, like, now you fucked up whenever they mention RA. And I think that that's a stronger scene. Being like, oh, well, what about all the ones you didn't bring back from RA? And you as the reader being like, oh, you shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have fucking said that. You didn't see it.
I think that that's just a stronger reaction as a reader. It is better to know about RA in this scene.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've only experienced it the one way, you know? So
it's very true. If I were like collecting the special editions for the series, not Hadrian, Rocchio is writing an extra, you could say Hadrian is, I guess, but Rocchio is writing an extra short story for the front of every book, basically.
Oh,
and they are all from his perspective.
Then just put RA as the one for this one.
I almost agree. I almost don't think it's better to like write something else, although I know he's going to, because he's promising new stories at the front of each one. But like, I think that the superior way to do it is just rock and roll with RA as required reading.
I totally agree. I think it is required reading. Like for me, so far early in the story, I think it defines half of these interactions.
Yeah.
And
from
Queen
the
of Mid-Ashes
political side,
doesn't need to be read. Queen of Mid-Ashes is a great way to see who Hadrian has become, to see the new Hadrian, to like see that shift to a degree.
Yeah. We get more Polino and Crim. We get more Red Company, which is good.
Yeah. Queen of Mid-Ashes is a perfect optional reading, and I like it more than RA as its own story. RA needs to be a part of this story. RA should just be the first. Like, put it as, say, prologue. Some people choose not to read prologues because they're dumb and weird. I don't understand that. Why would you get a book and then just skip part of it? But some people don't read prologues. Just put it as prologue. Let people decide, I guess. But
yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever skipped a prologue?
Never in my life.
It feels... well, learning that people skip prologues was kind of like learning people don't have internal monologues.
Yeah, right.
I was like, how's that work?
Yeah,
like,
how do you function?
That doesn't actually make any sense. You can't hear your own voice when you think. Do you not think in words? Like,
you think in pictures. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I've got sort of the same impression of this. I just truly think it's required, which is why I added it late to the game, because I read it. Just wanting to read some of the fun short stories and like reading the recommended ones that were out there from the collections as I was working through it. I read it and I was like, how don't I have this on a required reading list? It feels necessary. So I threw it in, like 2 or 3 weeks before.
I'm very happy you did, because I would have probably fully glossed over this chapter, but instead I glossed over the front half of this chapter. I went, I hate this guy. half these people. And
yeah,
then
it reframes it significantly to hate
and then
them.
it has a grab you back moment whenever RA is mentioned, which I'm
Mhm.
sure it still does to a degree if you don't know RA, but in this it's like that word is said, and all of a sudden I'm on my walk to the fucking bank and I'm like, oh, we're listening again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about the extra Solarian that noped out of her body through a fucking like system somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
presumably still out there.
Yeah. A little
And
ghost in the machine somewhere. Yeah.
I'm certainly thinking about like T4 Cielson model over here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Still horrified.
Ugh.
Yeah. So with that in mind, Hadrian comes to the obvious conclusion that they intend for the Red Company to fail. Plino, in a private conversation, also suggests that he should just maybe ask to be released from oath, from bondage, from everything else. But that is not an option at this point. Being a Knight Victorian, Hadrian can't look back from this.
I don't know as much as Hadrian, and even I was like, Polino, you idiot. You can't do that.
Yeah, Polino's like, maybe there's a path. And I get it, especially considering Polino's past. But, alternatively, there isn't. And he offers it up nonetheless. But they do share their more honest thoughts in their debugged shuttle that they find out that they're like alone for their own conversation between him, Ilex, and some other foe. Or not Ilex. Ilex isn't there. She debugged it. As Hadrian has begun to worry that either the Emperor or the people around him perceive him as a potential threat to the throne.
I think they do. I think it's obvious they would, especially because of the context of the Emperor being a god king, having someone who has died and come back and that legend precedes him.
Mm-hmm.
That's especially being part of Star Victoria, that is inherently a threat to the throne. I think Hadrian is downplaying how much he could have. There's a whole section where he's like, I would never be on the throne. It doesn't matter. No, like I don't think you realize how much things you say in other chapters about earning your status and your status being about your deeds. You did something God King can't do. You are immortal. You're half mortal at least.
Yeah.
And you're of the right bloodline in your Palatine, and you have the deeds to back you up as essentially the ruler of this cult that runs the universe. You're a big fucking threat to anybody. Like, I totally see it. And Hadrian's like, I don't know, but I don't think it's the Emperor. I'm like, I think it's probably the fucking Emperor. I would not feel good about this guy. If your whole shtick is like, I am magic, I'm more than human, I'm God, but then that guy got beheaded and came back and everyone keeps talking about it, I'd be like, I gotta get rid of this guy.
He's probably a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit of an issue. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How are you, maybe this is more of a general question and kind of spans the whole section. How do you feel about the Red Company now as like characters?
I like that they've got this cohesive unit vibe. I like that also Hadrian has clearly led them in a way that allows them to flourish in what they're good at, but not be like so sucked into military structure. Like, they're not a military structured unit at all. They're a military unit. They're not a military structured unit. And I think later in this section, we get a lot of conversation about that and about like finding their strengths and leaning on them. And I think the Red Company is pretty fucking cool. Honestly, like it's Bridge 4. Like, I want to be a part of it, even if it sucks, like.
I love that comparison to Bridge 4. I think that's most apt. They aren't the Howlers. They're Bridge 4.
They're not the Howlers. They are Bridge 4. Yeah.
Which is both to say that they have more and fewer characteristics, because the Howlers don't have, until very late in the game, like, there isn't much defining them outside of their Howler names to give them like really funky characteristics. Bridge 4 all have unique personalities, but they only show up like every once in a while. So
yeah, I'll also say Hadrian has a lot more personality wise, and honestly, like who he is wise. I think Hadrian has a lot more in common with Kaladin than he does with Darrow. I think a lot of people compare this story to Red Rising, but there's a lot of things that are closer to something Cosmere-ish, especially in the scope of it.
I think that's apt, especially in the scope of it, that it is more Cosmere-ish, and I would probably just point more directly to like Stormlight, to your point.
And he's pale and he's got the black hair and he's so melodramatic. He's Kaladin, baby. You know?
Yeah, the opposite, the other thing that a lot of people just, I think the reason that people draw the Red Rising comparison more immediately is sort of the fascistic empire caste system-esque.
There's clearly
moments,
the reasons.
right?
Like the setting is
the weapons,
I think that
yeah.
I think that the lines drawn between Red Rising and Sun Eater are as accurate as the lines drawn between Hunger Games and Red Rising.
Sure. Yep.
Which is to say, yeah, I get what you're saying. They're so different.
Yeah.
Like, no, like totally, you're right. But like there are other things you could compare this to for sure.
That are closer and more apt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And one was probably inspired by the other in multiple settings here, you know, but like or they carry this similar inspirations or whatever. But like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, I don't love when people are like, Red Rising's just Hunger Games. I'm like, yeah,
well,
if you only read
really...
the first 75% of the first book, yeah, it's pretty similar to Hunger Games. But like,
for patrons of the podcast, our dear friend, engineer and back end guy Tim and I put out a whole episode on like the reductive nature of comparison as like as a sub point within a larger episode.
That's a great
in our
episode.
podcast that we very rarely put out, called Speculative Knowledge, that I think there are like 12 episodes of. Great time. I highly recommend each of them. But one of the episodes we did talk about this as an element, and it really is like, I understand the necessity of comparison to bring someone into something, to try to give them something to relate to. However, it is innately reductive because it reduces art to composite parts as opposed to the whole that it's supposed to represent.
Whenever I see Red Rising compared to Hunger Games, it's not in a positive, hey, check this out if you like Hunger Games kind of a way. Yeah. It's in like
it's a Hunger Games.
It's just a Hunger Games dupe.
Yeah.
I often see also, I feel like everyone's always dogging on Red Rising for some reason on the internet. I see people be like, fuck Darrow, give me Hadrian all day. I'm like, it's so weird to compare the two, you know? Like,
there's also a lot of, on the other side of things, on the Sun Eater fence of like, it's like it's nowhere near Red Rising. It's like you got someone somewhere along the line promised you Red Rising here, and it was incorrect.
Yeah.
The vibes of Red Rising, perhaps some of that, but like not everything. It's like, nowhere near that,
dude. It's Stormlight written by C.S. Lewis, set in Red Rising universe. Like that's
right. That's if we're doing comparisons and approximations, it's a pretty good one as far as
these are such different stories and such different vibes.
Children of the Sun, as you mentioned, we're introduced to Queen Maria Agrippina, and if that doesn't ring historical alarm bells in your head, I'm really not sure what could or what might. That said, she's a really compelling character as they have conversations about children, lovers, and more, especially with her demeaning nature towards Valka as a Tavrosi witch, as she doesn't hold anything back. She's pretty vile almost immediately in this conversation, but she also has particular trouble with Hadrian's rise, considering how far he fell.
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely set up in this section to like make me think, hey, this is probably the one that's trying to set up Hadrian's fall.
Yeah.
But I still don't necessarily think the Emperor's out of there because, again, it's called Demon in White and he's on the fucking cover wearing a white robe. But it was in this chapter that I went, Rocchio is really doing the Bond thing. He just introduces a new crazy hot, unreasonably attractive goddess every book, every short story.
You know, that's
going from Queen and Ashes to here in the same week, and then remembering Janan, and then like we still have Valka.
Yeah, I think out of all of them, the two that make the most sense to me really are Maria Agrippina, especially because of the notes that are cited where it's like she has to be the most beautiful. She's marrying into
well
the
within
imperial
the story.
line.
It makes sense. It's just
she has to be genetically perfect, and she puts to shame everyone else to the point of where Hadrian's almost even a little aroused in her or like he doesn't say he is, but he's like a patrician or a plebeian would be. You know, would think that they're seeing Aphrodite in front of them.
And Hadrian is into her. Like, let's be real here. Hadrian is into her. And yes, so Maria makes perfect sense within the story, and it wouldn't make any sense to have it be anybody else. But there's a joke I can't think of what it's from. It might be from Mythic Quest because there's the writer guy in that. But it's like, but that's what makes sense for the story. And they're like, you're writing the story. You made it that way. It's
Yes.
like Rocchio's like, look, I have to write all these hot women into this story. It's what makes sense with the lore. They're like, you're writing the lore. And he's like, my hands are tied. I gotta talk about the boobies.
That is absolutely a Mythic Quest book, or with Mythic Quest.
Yeah,
episode.
I think it is, right?
You're 100% right. It's the old writer dude played by Seth Abrahamson. No,
Yeah. Which
close.
Mythic Quest just being a show that is a mediocre sitcom for 7 episodes every episode season, and then we'll just have one of the best episodes of TV for one episode every season it's just crazy.
It was brilliant. It's done now,
I haven't finished it. I've seen 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think I also only watched 3 seasons, and there are 5, I believe. And there's a whole spin-off season of just like the shortish episodes,
which that are always just there are
I think 4 of or something like that.
Anyways,
yeah. It's worth noting too, though, dear listener, that Craig Mazin writes most of those short episodes, and Craig Mazin also is the guy writing The Last of Us and Chernobyl, and I will glaze that.
Well,
man
you know what
as
else
a writer
Craig Mazin
for a very
is
long time.
Making
Scary Movie. What?
Craig Mazin?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
It was Scary Movie 4 or 5, one of the bad ones. And then
he's just also doing Baldur's Gate
superhero
for HBO.
movie. Yes, he's also doing Baldur's Gate.
That's what I was bringing up.
I couldn't help myself.
Carlac right here, right. Everybody has a miss.
No, I'm a big lover of Craig Mazin and everything that he's done.
Look, Alien 3 exists.
And David Fincher is one of my favorite directors.
Is incredible. But right. Alien 3 exists. You know?
Right.
Right. I had fun with it. It's fine.
Maria Agrippina, though, are you aware of the Agrippina lore? Shall I share with you?
Yeah.
The bits?
Assume I know. Let's just pretend go ahead and explain this to me like I was homeschooled.
Sure. If you were homeschooled, I think you would know this, but
I was homeschooled.
Homeschooled well. I'm just kidding.
I was homeschooled by a mom who did not graduate high school.
Yeah, it's super fair. We've talked about this before. Agrippina is the mother of the Emperor Caligula.
Okay, I know Caligula because it's a very, very sexual movie from the late 60s.
The Emperor Caligula, which is it Roman? I don't know. I don't know the movie Caligula.
Caligula certainly implies it's Roman. It's starring Helen Mirren, and it is one of the most famous films that is a non-pornographic movie that features actual, real, penetrative sex frequently.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Just so you know, Helen Mirren starred in a theatrically released porno early in her career.
Insane. So Caligula is directly related to Nero. Nero being notably the worst of emperors. Agrippina basically being in charge of a sibling of Nero.
It is Roman, though. Yes.
This makes sense now. I understand the context. I was like, is it Roman? Because if it's Roman, okay, sure. Because there's a lot of like interesting context between both Agrippina the Elder and Agrippina the Younger, of whom mother-daughter, basically, or granddaughter, I forget. But they're in line with each other and in the line of emperors. So notably, Caligula's name wasn't Caligula. It was his nickname, but now he's only known by his nickname. He was like Caius Julius Caesar, but he's Caligula now collectively as like the shitty 5-year emperor. But then also directly with Nero, and Nero is notably the emperor that is basically responsible for one of the largest falls of the Roman Empire. Yeah. Not the entire fall, but a big part of sort of the end and the insanity.
He is very responsible for the fall of the Roman Empire, or a major piece of it, and is also not directly responsible, in the same way, not directly responsible for the fall of the Roman Empire, but I would say just as much as for the rise of Christianity from specifically trying to kill them all.
Correct.
But he's who gave them the whole like martyr complex to go off and be imperialists for the next
forever, so
2,000 years.
Yeah, right. So like Nero is responsible for a lot of things.
He's like notably the original Reagan, you know.
That is an interesting comparison. I'll have to think about that more before.
He didn't ruin the country, but he sure opened it up for it.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, he ruined the country a little.
Nero is worse, but
well, yeah. I mean, it was Rome. They did shit bigger back then.
An important note for people who maybe don't know that much about like Greek and Roman history and mythology and philosophy and sort of the interlacing of them, mostly not mythology but philosophy. Seneca, who is often cited as one of the Stoic philosophers, was a senator and an advisor to Nero, and so is very directly related to this whole exchange that happens. But Agrippina is notably a little bit of a snake in history, so we can just leave it there. Yeah. Because she also immediately gives off that impression
yes,
on the page.
For sure. And Reaganomics gave rise to the eventual 2007 Citizens United, so it's fine.
Yeah, right. We're all doing great since that decision, especially with the very recent decision that in Delaware, companies are allowed to vote as citizens. So that's fun and exciting.
I didn't know that's a new one.
Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah, that was fun.
That's good. That's
there was a
dystopian
judge. Yeah.
It sucks that every day that I spent watching Star Trek, I should have realized that we're just going for cyberpunk. It's just going to be cyberpunk. And not the genre of the video games.
I love that you think that it's going to be cyberpunk and not instead fucking Sun Eater, which is way worse.
Well, I think it has to be cyberpunk before it's Sun Eater.
Nah, I think we're skipping straight into the Americani Revolution. Anyway, you don't know what that looks like, but that's fine.
I don't,
that said, interesting character. Alexander enters, though, interrupting their conversation and leading to the first meeting that we have between Alexander and Hadrian. There's been a lot of historical paintings of Alexander over the course of the story, which is interesting. But it's our first presentation on the idea of these nigh infinite identical princes and princesses. And all told, in our first encounter, I get a lot of young Hadrian in the man. What do you think?
Very much so. I assumed based on the Alexanders that we've had, like you were mentioning up to this point, that it's just a very common name. He can't even be the closest in the line named Alexander, right? Like,
yeah, probably.
I don't know, but I just assume he's just another Alexander. He's like 217th in line, I think you say, like, or something like that. And he's just Alexander, and I know there's an Alexander somewhere else in there. And there's so many Alexanders, and they all look the fucking same because they're all designed to be emperors.
It's like the No Doubt song, Just a Girl. Like, I'm just an Alexander in the world.
It's also, I'm just Ken.
Yeah, I'm just Alexander. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
I do think, even though he's supposed to be way younger than Hadrian, basically a little kid. Not a little kid, but, you know, like a young adult. He's 30, but what's 30? To a Palatine, what's a god to a king? What's a king to a non-believer? You know, don't believe it.
Literally a line that's also said a little bit later in this section. So,
yeah, I just was listening to Kanye and Jay-Z and Watch the Throne when he wrote this. It's fine.
Super fair.
Rocky was like, "No church in the wild. Let's write." So I don't assume he's like the Alexander. You know, I mean, obviously there's the main one we all think about. I think it was like the Great or something, but
yeah, the Great, right?
Yeah, that one. I don't know. Alexander the Goat. But, okay, so my immediate thoughts were he reminds me of Hadrian a little bit from book one, and then the other one is. And I won't say anything that is spoilerly, but it is from a different series. My first thought was, did we just get our Lysander?
I have mentioned this before. I think I made a joke about this in the previous book, maybe in the first book. In comments asides, I was like, "You think that Hadrian's Lysander, buddy? You got one coming for you." And I don't mean that in the cumulative picture. If that, without
this
spoiling,
guy seems so Lysander, right? Like
way more Lysander coded than.
Dear listener, I assume you probably know Red Rising if you're listening to us, but Red Rising Lysander. I'm not saying I think that that's necessarily where he's going. If this Lysander were to do what other Lysander did to his mentor, he'd probably be fine because the quiet wouldn't allow it. Yeah, I don't know. He's a very specific character archetype, but I kind of like him.
Yeah,
as of right now, I dig Alexander a little bit in like he sucks, but like he's such an interesting character direction.
I draw more of a comparison personally. Like he has Lysander traits, but I draw more of a comparison to Roke, almost in a way.
Okay, good to know. Noted. But yeah,
just mentally from my own like perception, right?
Yeah, he's this very spoiled individual attached to the hierarchy, but not necessarily like an important piece of it. Used as a bargaining chip. Like he's being used by this empire almost more than Hadrian is, you know, like. So it's interesting to see him
he's going to end up being a knight, you know, at best, basically, as Hadrian points out.
Well, like, and Hadrian does like point out like he's, you know who he is. He's Jaime Lannister.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. A young Jaime. Like he could become squire to the king. He could become the head of the Kingsguard one day, maybe, but like never a king.
Yeah. Tywin isn't king. Tywin is next to kingdom, and he might be the hand of the king one day, or he is, and you know, like it's that sort of a thing where it's like, how can I make myself matter in history as this person who exists too far away to ever have it just happen? I have to decide from these limited options which one I'll be. So he's an interesting character. Actually, I think of him very much so in a Jaime way, but also in a Lysander way. But Lysander's different in the sense that like he could be. His whole life he's like, I would be the one if they were to look at me.
Right.
This guy doesn't
not
have
what we
that.
get from Alexander.
Yeah, Alexander's like, I'll never be emperor. I'll never be the one people look to, but I want to make something of this life, but I'm very limited in what I can do because also I have to always be ready to be emperor.
Yeah.
Even though it will never happen. And so it's a very interesting character dynamic. And I think we're shown later on, we'll talk about it, that Alexander is a spoiled rich kid, but we're also shown that he does actually want to do this. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's
he's
a
not
solid
being
argument
a
that
bitch. Like, he shows up and he's like, oh, he has bitchish tendencies, but then Hadrian's like, no, and he's like, all right, like he wants to do it. He's like a kid going to ROTC, but he's from a rich family, and it's like, you don't have to do military camp. You really don't. We know you're not enlisting, but like, he wants to do it. He wants to prove to himself that he could be a knight, you know.
Yeah, I think that's an apt comparison. I think the other side of this too is like he's learning faster than Hadrian was, and so I think that's an important difference. Like he's coming to terms with reality faster.
I think he also has more of an ability to come to terms with reality than Hadrian, because Hadrian didn't have a Hadrian.
Right. Yeah, he's got someone to like guide and mentor a little bit more clearly.
If Hadrian crash landed on Imesh and then some like second to the emperor like god man picked him up and was like, let me teach you the ways that he had looked up to his entire life, he'd probably figure out that like homunculi are people. But you know, Hadrian had to learn. It's very older brother younger brother dynamics. Like,
absolutely,
I've watched my older brother fuck up my entire life, so like I knew not to do that. He turned out fine. He's doing great, but he punched you like once. It's fine.
Just once. I think every time we've said this, I've cut it out of the podcast. So this is where that lives.
You could leave that one just out of context. It was a jokey punch, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a punch, but like not a good one.
I was caught off guard, but I knew that was potentially coming. Yeah.
And then we put him to bed. We're like, that's enough now.
Yep. We put him to bed by
sweetheart.
beating the shit out of him. No, just kidding.
No, we just said it's bedtime.
No, it's all good. An interesting character, and I think also interesting in a contrast to both Agrippina, the emperor, and Selene. And I do think it's important for me to call out that this is maybe one of the most controversial pieces of the fandom as it exists, is how do you say Selene? because some people say Cellini and some
Who
people
the fuck
say
says
Celine.
that?
Well, Rocchio does, and a number of the people around do in the case. And also,
But you look at that name. That's a name that exists. You can just say that the way the name exists. We've read it. I know people named Celine. It's spelt like that.
I don't know, man. I'm not in charge. I'm not here to make an argument on either side of things. I'm just going to say Celine because that's how I would say it. And I'm just going to end that there. But I acknowledge the Celinis out there as you exist.
Hey,
but I disagree.
Here's the thing. I've mentioned it probably 8 times so far this episode. I'm Italian. Celine sounds nice. That's not how you would spell that. So let's move on. That's Celine.
Yeah. I just, this is probably the clip that we're going to put on Instagram. So I just want to say, cheers, you're wrong. And I know
Celine.
that Rocchio is included in that group, but that's fine.
Hey, Rocchio. Hey, maybe you should read your own book, babe. Because that says Celine.
Okay, but we love you. Thank you. But as we see Cellini, just kidding.
One of them.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Fucking
as we
fix
see Celine threw it right down the barrel, horrifying.
Yeah, we're so used to not looking directly at each other. If I could just,
right.
There's power in that.
Yeah.
For the listeners, we're looking directly into the camera.
Yeah, which is very atypical. But yeah, Hadrian has sort of flashes of his visions from brethren and seeing her at his feet and a life that they might share in every way. He sees her dressing. He sees her underneath him. Like there's like sexual visions connotations here. There's a lot that happens sort of mentally as he sees her.
This has like I had a DMT trip where I had a whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And then I woke up and that family didn't exist. But then you meet the wife you met in that DMT trip, like at that same music festival. It's a whole weird thing, and I don't know how to process it. I don't know how to express this. That doesn't like jump into a topic I'm not necessarily trying to dive heavily into, but it's a topic that's serious. There is no way to read this section where their relationship as it might unfold in the future doesn't have like a question of like consent and honesty.
Sure.
Like Hadrian has a weird position now where he has been with her, where he knows her, it's like the shit I think about on 50 First Dates every time I watch it. I'm like, there's no way this isn't like a little wrong, but like it is romantic. Or like, okay, a better example would be if you have seen one of my favorite movies of all time, actually. It's the most underrated gem that nobody watched, Palm Springs.
Which is incredible, and I love it.
There was a moment, so that is a Groundhog Day-esque film.
Mm-hmm. Same with About Time, for the record. They borrow, like, not the same premises, but they borrow a similar idea of, like, how do you approach reapproaching the same situation all the time without it being incredibly unfair to the other party.
Now, I'll say, just the only difference between About Time and Palm Springs is About Time was picked up where someone was like, hey, that's a cool idea. Let's just fucking make a movie about it and see if we make money. Whereas Palm Springs was just a bunch of people who cared about a story, who made it together, and they were all very talented. I think Palm Springs is just like beautifully shot, which like About Time doesn't have. The cinematography. I so
disagree with you, for the record. About Time is one of my favorite movies of all time, but that's fine. We don't have to get into that right now.
I'll watch it again.
You didn't know that. Yeah. I cry every fucking time I watch that movie. I am man. Anyway,
I did not know whenever I brought up About Time, because I'm like one of the only people I know that like About Time. So like
that's interesting.
It was weird to not like it. I think everybody's like, it's a cool concept. It's a fine movie.
I'm not saying,
but
I
was like really into
About
it.
Time. About not In Time.
Oh, I've been thinking of In Time.
No. Importantly, different movie. About Time is a very different movie.
Sorry, I was like, are you saying to me?
Rachel McAdams. No,
I was still thinking about Justin Timberlake. We were talking about it beforehand.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that my dad and I've gotten into a couple of times, similarly with the language, like just that subtle thing of about or in. And About Time is also one of his favorite movies, and so he confuses the two every once in a while. And it's like, or he talks about one and means the other, and it's like, that's not it.
So because we were already talking about it, I was thinking End Time this whole time. I take back everything I said, but I was so confused when you're like,
good.
the cinematography in End Time.
I was like,
up.
they're totally different. Entirely different.
My brain went to End Time.
Time.
I do know that About Time and End Time are different movies, but we were talking about End Time so much earlier.
That's fair.
I thought you were being like, no, I just think that End Time has the best cinematography. I was like, that movie
no.
Looks like it was filmed by a guy who studied Michael Bay, but
I would
never
not
learned
stand by
film
that.
theory. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. About Time is a different film.
Mm-hmm.
I really like, as far as films that aren't very popular, that are independently made to a degree, the cinematography in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
There is a Palm Springs aspect here, which is why I started it.
That's also why I said the same thing about Time, although
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen About Time, so
I
that's
have not.
That's a different note.
So that is a different story for a different
for anyone who doesn't know, it's directed by the guy who directed Bridget Jones's Diary, Notting Hill, Love Actually, Yesterday from 2019.
Love Actually is the second best rom-com of all time, and you could barely call it that because it's pretty depressing, but it's fine.
So I Love Actually, as mentioned previously in our Christmas episode, is one of my favorite Christmas movies, if not I think I put it in my favorite Christmas movie, which I think is probably
I think you put it as
still.
Yeah.
Same director, so not shocking.
The only rom-com, classic rom-com I like more than Love Actually is a Love Actually dupe that was ripping off Love Actually's style. I just think Crazy Stupid Love is a better movie.
It's a very good movie. It's a very good movie.
Because that movie has no business being that good. But yeah.
To that point, About Time is my favorite rom-com.
Okay, I'll have to.
It's in my top 10.
I have not watched About Time. I will have to watch About Time.
If you love Palm Springs, you will love About Time. And I think you will be heartbroken harder because it is intended in that direction as opposed to Palm Springs is more comedic. So
all that's to say. But no, great news. I will watch that. This almost has that Palm Springs aspect where if you spoilers, if you have not watched the indie movie Palm Springs,
available on Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever, you can go watch it.
It's not that indie, like it's there.
Yeah,
it's really good. It came out during COVID. It would have been a hit, but
by the Lonely Island guys.
All the Lonely Island guys, starring Andy Samberg. Akiva's in it.
Akiva directs, right?
Yeah.
Or who directs?
Akiva directs, I think.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
Yeah. It's just the best modern take on Groundhog Day. There is an arc within that where there is the main romantic interest and the main character, and they both get stuck in this time loop, but at different times. So the main character has been in the time loop as we begin the movie at a wedding, and the other character, who is also the main character, actually maybe more the main character, joins the time loop later, and then one character is teaching the other about the time loop. There's something brought up in that where the main character, Andy Samberg's character, has slept with everybody here multiple thousands of times as he's relived this day millions of times. Unfathomable amount of times. And this kind of reminded me of that in the gross way where it's like Hadrian has experienced the relationship, so Hadrian cannot have a real, actual, like, non-tainted experience with this person where he doesn't have some sort of power dynamic upper hand that makes it a little gross because he has experienced his life with this person in multiple realities. Up to this point.
Definitely with you. I just want to bring up
that was such a long way to get there, but
no, and I think it's important and should be recognized in the way that it is. I do also want to say that there's like the Brethren visions also have had this sort of like daydreamy quality to them as well.
Yeah, he doesn't just know everything about her, but
it's not
like
accurate, or not fully accurate.
But he has experienced being with her, and now he meets her for the first time.
Yeah.
And there was something there of like a Hadrian has never done anything to broach that consent, but there is still something there that dehumanizes this person to a degree.
Yeah, I'm just painting a layer of like, I'm 100% with you on the consent side of things. It's more like there's this layer of like almost hallucination on top of it, which makes you question whether or not it's real or possible, but that doesn't change the reality of the
and that's why I brought up like, the
experience.
DMT friend at a music festival originally. It's like someone hallucinates a life with a person and then meets that person after that hallucination. There is something weird there where like they did experience something with this person that person did not have that same experience to. And it just makes it interesting.
Maybe this is just uniquely, and I'm sure other people are on the same page here, but
it's uniquely sci-fi to a degree, but
uniquely sci-fi for sure. But I often, like, over the course of my life, have had dreams like those, you know?
Yeah.
And I can actively recall most of them, which is fucked up in my own right.
Do you meet people before you meet them?
Maybe 2 or 3, in a strange kind of fucked up way. I don't know what it is. I feel like I experience a very intense deja vu, but I think a lot of that's because I am like a very active dreamer as opposed to we don't need to get into this fully. This is not a therapy session, but I think that's also why I enjoy writing as much as I do, because I see through so many different lenses and experience so many different things, including when I can finally fall asleep. Part of that is also I'm a chronic insomniac, so when I do fall asleep, it's almost more like a hallucination than it is a moment of rest.
You an insomniac? I never would have guessed.
Yeah, that's how I manage these recordings when we go until 3 a.m, because it's like I'm not gonna fall asleep anyway. 3 a.m, my time, not your time. So
let's get across the bed, everybody.
Hadrian asks Alexander if he's bringing any guardians or servants with them, with him leading to the Empress to question whether or not he's capable of keeping him safe versus his intent of trying to ensure that the boy isn't alone on the journey if he doesn't have to be. There's like this interesting layer of conversation here where like Hadrian, if he were in the same position, probably wishes that he could have brought Gibson, right? If he were in the same position as Alexander. And so he's offering the opportunity or asking if he has a Gibson or someone like that he wants to bring along. And the Empress is like, no, why would he? Blah, blah, blah. And it's unclear whether or not he actually does or doesn't. But I think it seems like he maybe doesn't have someone like that.
It feels to me like Hadrian was the firstborn of a minor lord, but still an important person within the line he was born into.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the 217th of
the Aventine house.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Windsor in exile. Yeah.
Well, why would they spend any time on this kid other than just like an education loosely?
Yeah.
Nobody's taken any interest in Alexander. Alexander's just kind of here. I don't think that there is anybody. But it's nice that Hadrian offers.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's meant to be a kindness, and instead Agrippina interprets it as a malicious, like, oh, you're not good enough, sort of take.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It did seem like Hadrian was like, oh, who would you like to bring along? And he's like, he doesn't even say that. Celine does. Mm-hmm. Celine does.
Celine, yeah, whatever. What have you?
God, I think she's such a bad person. I just think she might be the problem.
Are you thinking Agrippina? You're thinking Agrippina. Not
I'm
Celine.
thinking Agrippina, not Celine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Agrippina.
Yeah.
Agrippina does. And just might be a bad person, but it's fine. It's fine.
A bad mom at the least.
Yeah. Well, maybe he loves her son, but certainly type of person I dislike. Anyways, it's fine.
Definitely. We get to this depiction to kind of round out the chapter of the Galeth tree and its blossoming leaves falling and hitting the ground. Do you think that it's mentioned that the tree never loses its leaves? Obviously, this feels immediately symbolic. Are there any images that this more immediately evokes for you?
So they're showing Galeth tree.
I'm thinking about
it reminds me so much of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the white tree.
With the white tree. It's very emblematic. Like it just like it shows you the state of the future of this place. Like, it has me a little worried knowing that I'll scroll up here, knowing that
Cut.
we're gonna find the name. We debated how to say it.
Draka.
Draka, yes.
Cut.
It has me a little worried, to get that imagery with Draka on the way. But yeah, it's fun. It's just like probably the Empire is just like gonna shed some leaves. No, yeah, they're gonna get fucked heavily, and I think a big part of it is the fact that they are gonna infight and pull Hadrian out of where he's supposed to be to send him off on some fucking quest. I also think that Alexander, being not anywhere near the throne, but with Hadrian, I end up way closer to the throne than he thought he ever would. If Draka hits kind of this area while Hadrian is off on a mission decades away.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something here, I think, to be said about, like we've previously talked about, like how specifically Rocchio pays homage to the history of science fiction and fantasy and things like that throughout references, and like really tries to like own that and put a lot of things in. I think at this point, it's also worth pointing out that is there a layer of Hadrian of whom recognizes those tropes and writes them in as representative of the texts that he knows?
I don't know if I can speak too much on that, but I think that's fun. Yeah. I think that's also just like, that's like painting over anchors in the wall.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But it still looks better, and I like it.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that it is just like a layer of, extra maybe color perhaps that exists on the story. Yeah. But this one in particular, I think it's a really
smart way to use this storytelling device, is setting up in a way where it makes us ask those questions. Like you can say, hey, is this a plot hole, or is this a Hadrian unreliable narrative? You could say, like, hey, is this a reference, or is this a Hadrian inspiration from that reference? It really allows the reader to build their own story based on what they know or care about and assign it to Hadrian. And I think it's just like actually like a really smart and well made way to tell a story. So
yeah. And I think this book in particular, within its first 9 chapters, really leans into, I don't want to call it disinformation, but I do want to say like leading you in certain directions, right?
Yeah.
Hadrian doesn't remember all the oaths. And so like as such, he has to cite a book. Okay, Hadrian, what the fuck else have you forgotten in the interim? Or are you like fudging, scene to scene to like get us to where we need to be to some degree?
Exactly.
And there's a couple of other points where he like mentions, there are some other like intentional moments where he's like, I think it was this or this, and that's wrong. If you look at the text, it's strictly incorrect. It wasn't in this example. It's the first person who said Siriani Draka's name. It isn't the people that he mentions, which he says either it was Uvenari or Tanaran. It's Karn. Karn is the first person in the text that says his name.
Interesting. See, whenever he said that, I was like, I feel like I've heard it. I don't remember where, but
yeah. Exactly.
That's so
then you go back and you look. Yeah. And it's like,
it's Karn.
Oh, you're fucking wrong, dude. And that's intentional, I think. Like, that's intentional to point us in the perspective of like making this, he is an unreliable narrator. And I think Rocchio has done such a good job in the first couple of chapters of weaving it in very cleverly in a way that if you hadn't picked it up at this point, you should now. If you missed it somehow in the first 2 books.
Yeah.
So
also, on the Karn of it all, I cannot wait to see, because it's mentioned so many times in the back half of the section that there's 2 Karns. I can't wait to see if and when and how the 2 Karns come back into the story. So I don't know. I actually have no predictions. I'm just like sitting here knowing there are 2 Karns that probably have similar ideals but different ways to get them. Is there one Karn that's helping the Empire and one Karn that's helping the Cielsen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that why some of the Cielsen have robot parts. I don't know. Like we're gonna figure it out.
I don't know, dude. Yeah,
So.
very fair. All right. With that, we'll move into our drink segment here.
Yeah, to be drinking.
So, Josh, drinks?
Yeah, I made something based on what I have, like I usually do. But it turned out really good.
Okay.
It's an old fashioned. It's just an old fashioned variant. So it's Old Forester rye whiskey, very affordable, very nice,
very
rye.
good.
I like that rye for the price a lot.
Especially as like a mixing whiskey, it's incredible. I also just it's like that and Michter's are like my two favorite ryes.
Yeah, and it's like
go-tos.
half the price, or not half the price, but it's like a $10 decrease from Michter's for the Old Forester rye. At least where I'm from, I don't know if that like changes based on where.
No, that's about right. Yeah.
Michter's is a little better, but it's not $10 better. And
yeah.
I do whenever anytime I'm in a situation where money's not a problem, Michter's rye for sure. But I love Old Forester rye. Great. It has no business being $27. Like it's so cheap, it's so good. And so it's that for an old fashioned, an ounce and a half of that, and then I did a half ounce of the other simple syrup I made. If you listen to our Queen of Mid Ashes episode, I mentioned I made a simple syrup for a friend that came over who only likes really sweet drinks. That was like a wild berry simple syrup. This was the other one, which was a navel orange. I squeezed a bunch of them and made like orange juice, and then I squeezed a bunch of grapefruit, and I replaced the water of a simple syrup with the like strained juices from the grapefruit and the orange juice. So it was like a very bitter citrus simple syrup. I don't know how to explain it, but it turned what I was essentially going for, because they didn't have any blood oranges, was a blood orange simple, and it does actually taste a lot like a blood orange simple. So I made a blood orange simple out of navel oranges and grapefruit, red grapefruit specifically.
Yummy.
And everything else about it's just a normal old fashioned. It's just rye, simple, and bitters. And I did a lemon twist instead of an orange twist because there was already so much orange in the simple. And I was like, well, this is going to taste like a citrusy old fashioned. And I don't know why, but it's like the best old fashioned I've ever made. It's really good. I think the grapefruit bringing the bitters back highlights the bitters. And it just tastes really good. It's balanced. It's not overly sweet. It's not overly citrusy. It's just nice, and it tastes like how I like old fashions to taste, but like fruitier. Yeah,
delightful. I'm very excited that sounds really tasty. Obviously, I can see on the video your beer of choice, and as a note with Josh's new setup, you can always see the cocktail, the shot, the beer.
I'm trying to make sure that the cocktail, the beers, the shot, they're all in the shot,
which is pretty neat. Yeah. I mean, your shot composition is much better than mine is at the moment. I'm moving in about a month, and so that'll change into like a setup that should be nice. But yeah, so then we'll be.
You'll also see that I drank my entire cocktail I just talked about somewhere around chapter 2. Now it's just whiskey.
Now it's just the whiskey.
With ice and some leftovers. It's fine.
Yeah, totally. And the beer you're having?
That's a Sierra Nevada, a pale ale. It's a classic beer. It exists everywhere. It's so good. Every time I have one, I'm like, it's usually whenever I'm at like a gas station or something like that, and I'm like picking up beers because I had to get gas, but also I have the podcast, and that's exactly why I have it right now. I had to get gas on the way home, and I needed to pick up a beer for the podcast. So I was like, okay, I'll just grab whatever they have. And they didn't have a very good selection, but everywhere has Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And like proceeds go to national parks, and it's like located in Chico, California, a city I really, really like. Or not city, it's more of a town. It's a college town. But like,
they're great.
There's nothing wrong there, and the beer tastes real good. You know? So this isn't me stunting with my beers, my San Diego beers. This is just a Sierra Nevada. And if you're gonna pick up a mass-produced beer, pick up a Sierra Nevada. So,
yep, Love it. That's cool.
What about you? What are you drinking?
Josh, I'm only having beer. As I mentioned, mostly out of like not wanting to bring over all my cocktail ingredients. Not that my friends don't also have like a cocktail bar, but I don't want to. I totally could have asked, but I was also like, I texted Tyler, I'm gonna steal an ounce out of rum, and he's like, you can take more than that. And I'm like, I'm not here to
take 1 ounce, one shot.
Yeah, right. I guess it's an ounce and a half or whatever. But I did buy beer, and I was really excited to try a couple of beers from some of my favorite breweries. I talked about this a little bit on the Devil's Cut already, but Surf Wax from Burial Brewing Co. And I'll show it to the camera because I can in this lighting and setup. It's really pretty can. It's a pear beer, and I first had like my first true Burial experience went there over my birthday this year when I visited Asheville. It was excellent, easily my favorite brewery that we went to at the time. And I haven't been able to find a whole lot of their beer all of a sudden in the area. So I was kind of shocked by that, considering their distribution is amping up, and they're still independent. But this is awesome. It's very peary. It's excellent. The second beer is a mainstay brand for the podcast, which is Drecker. But this one is also combined with Toppling Goliath, which if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you'll know that Toppling Goliath is one of PJ and I's collective favorite breweries, combined with our other kind of mainstay-y favorite brewery. This is a combination of the two. It's an IPA called Don't Go Into the Long Grass with a Tyrannosaur with an eyeball coming out of its face and a baseball bat with screws in it.
Okay, I won't then.
Yeah, definitely not fucking with that guy. Super good. I mean, both of these beers are truly exceptional. I am spoiled on this episode, and I feel very spoiled for quality beer. So,
damn.
Feels good, especially considering like the Voodoo Ranger and shit like that I've had recently.
Oh yeah, that that sounded so bad.
Yeah, especially the Invincible Voodoo Ranger. I will never get over. That was so awful. Yeah, especially considering I mostly enjoy Voodoo Ranger, but that was like
that. Sure. I have like a dislike of Voodoo Ranger, but it's just
totally fine, totally acceptable. Mostly like Voodoo Ranger, mostly think that it's acceptable as like a similarly mass produced. I would probably go Sierra Nevada, Summit, and then Voodoo Ranger as far as like my preference on like mass produced beer. Summit being, a St. Paul brand from Minnesota.
Yeah. I think I don't know how mass produced it is. It's very common on the West Coast, but like Stone, I think is like
Stone is very common. Stone's also very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd put them on the Voodoo Ranger like at level with Voodoo Ranger.
I think they're better than Voodoo Ranger, being from where they both are from.
Yeah. That's fair. I just feel like we get the weird Stone and not the good Stone out here.
Yeah, you guys don't get just like
in the Midwest, it was way better. The selection was way better. We'd get the good stuff. But the East Coast does not get the good Stone.
No, so, I don't know why Stone would go that far out there, Yeah,
we're too far. We're too far. But I'm a fan of Stone as well. Okay, I think with that, we can get into our next chapter here. The Tamerlane. Hadrian and Alexander make their way to the starport, and we see in all its glory the Tamerlane, a gift from the emperor in the place of a planetary fief. So literally, instead of a planet, boy got this ship. It is epic, big, black, decked in heavy armor, knife-shaped with this dorsal structure. Very, very cool.
Do you want a planet? No, I want a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, exactly. Give me one of the super Star Destroyers.
Yeah. And it looks like it's shaped like a knife. It's big as fuck. It's got a dorsal fin. To me, it's very much so describing like a black and gold super Star Destroyer,
Absolutely. I think that I definitely get sort of the impression of Star Destroyer. I would just temper that with like the Space Marine, like massive cruisers, and the Imperator ships and sort of the variety there. I'm not 100% certain on the Warhammer 40k names because I didn't fucking play Space Marines because Space Marines are so fucking basic. Just kidding.
Oh, wow. You played a fantasy sci-fi game and you were like, I'm just going to be a cop? That's so cool.
Well, yeah, they're kind of actually not the cops. The Eldar are kind of the cops. But
Did you play the Eldar?
No, I did not play the Eldar. I played the Tau. And the Necrons and the Tyranids. So I played mostly bad guys.
I never really like
the communists. I played the aliens, and I played the elves. So there you go.
Yeah, I only played Warhammer, kind of. once at a
that's
summer camp, and I played Necrons.
Necrons are sick. Yeah, Necrons are dope. They were a little too expensive at the time, so I didn't fully invest, but I did get a little squad to play little squad games with a friend of mine.
I would love to get back into Warhammer.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like the most expensive hobby.
Yeah.
so there's that.
I have like $4. Will that work?
Yeah, will that do it? It's like you can have one Space Marine.
Thanks, Dad.
Actually, it's $10. Sorry. Do you have?
Yeah.
And it's unpainted. So I just love the depiction of the ship. I think that there's like a little bit of it stretches in the direction of Star Destroyer, but then throw in the dimensionality of like Warhammer 40K to like really get sort of the gritty nature, I think, of a lot of these ships and depiction. But yeah, it's really cool. Love the aesthetic. Alexander also has his first run-in with a member of the Red Company here, which is just a rando named Barrow. That turns into a quick lesson from Hadrian on how to treat the men, as well as the gravity of his ship versus standard, before they finally board. And we re-meet the Red Company once again, including the introduction of a young Lorian Aristides on his king.
I like Lorian. Lorian is fun.
Yeah.
It's also so interesting here. This is one moment, and then there's one a little bit later whenever Ilex is talked about, but I think that's a later chapter.
Yeah. It's the final chapter.
Where Hadrian like has the same views I've had about Hadrian towards Alexander. Like Hadrian is growing. Hadrian's like, it's not his fault he's an Intis. You know, I'm like, Hadrian, you do not remember what you sounded like in the first book. But
he actually does. He acknowledges what he sounded like. Importantly,
especially in the last chapter.
In the last chapter, he importantly does. I pulled out that whole quote in that whole section because I figured it was worthy to talk about. But
but
here's the first introduction to the idea.
There's something I'm not going to dive into too much here, but whenever Ilex is introduced, the Saltus conversation comes back up, and I'm like, we're back, baby. Saltus is back. But it's really interesting. And I also just love that Hadrian's like, what you doing down there, buddy? And he's like, my leg gave out again. He's like, okay. Like he just has this like physically fucked human who is a genius, like a strategical genius. And it's so fun to see that Hadrian's just like brought on such a motley crew. Like I don't know if a motley crew like this exists in the entire universe at this point, because I assume none of Motley Crew survived to this point.
Yeah, no one, and Kiss especially did not.
They're not here. There's a solid chance that like
AC/DC is still out there.
Yeah, for some reason they're shaking it all night long. But Lorian's an interesting character who I almost feel like is more of a rogue, whereas Alexander is presented as more of a Lysander. But I haven't experienced them. But in this moment, this is just someone who's like built for thought and ponderation, but like seriously has such an incredible strategic mind that was kind of like sent into things that they knew he wasn't built for, specifically because they had expectations of him or wanted him to fail, you know, like.
You're more right than I was. I was thinking about it from a rogue perspective with Alexander's, particularly with like his sort of cultural bearing, not his more normal characteristic traits. But you're 100% that like Lorian is more rogue-esque in that way.
Yeah. But he comes in as such a cool character. Like, he feels like, whenever I picture the things being described in Sun Eater, I picture a very kind of almost, and this could be considered negative, and I don't mean it this way, but like Marvel-esque sci-fi fantasy live action.
Interesting.
Lorian is anime. That's an anime character. Yeah. That's just like a guy with the big sleepy nose, like bubble that Hadrian looks at and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, my leg gave out, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
his
a little
animation
bit more...
style switches to more chibi sometimes. Like
sure, yeah. He does feel more like Full Metal Alchemist in that way.
Very Full Metal Alchemist, yeah.
I can't lie to you, Josh. I would be doing myself a disservice to do so. And I often will hide or constrain things, but I'm just here to tell you, Lorian is one of my favorite characters in the entire series.
I like him a
I've
lot
been
right
waiting
now.
for him this whole time.
That's so sick to hear.
So,
okay, because I do have like a fear.
Yeah.
One of the biggest negatives, it's not really a negative, but one of the biggest negatives to the series so far is and I'm low-key serious about Saltis, but I'm mostly joking, but Saltis has become to me the like pure example of introduce a cool character, abandon them immediately, which this series does a lot. I don't want Lorian to be a Saltis.
He's not.
Or a Crow.
Yeah.
Or even a Rain Smythe, who was so fucking sick for a book and a half. But, like, this book has a problem. The series so far, up to this point, like, kind of has a problem, like, maintaining the idea of, like, there's a central cast, which I think the second book, about halfway through, starts to establish and has been carried on through this book. I want Lorian to stick around. I think Lorian's so fucking cool.
I can promise that he sticks around
as
much as anyone else
book,
does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Lorian is one of my favorite characters in the entire series, and I've been waiting, and like even his semi-introduction that we get, I think, in both Queen Amid Ashes, where he's mentioned, not really there, I don't think.
He's mentioned as someone like up on the ship, right?
Yes, as he is. Maybe it's just in Demons of RA. It might not be. No, he's not in Queen Amid Ashes. He's in Demons of RA. Yeah. And he has like 2 lines, but we don't know that he's an Intist or crippled. Like we get none of that.
We know nothing. He's just part of the crew, and he's like doing his thing.
Yep. Versus what this portrays as, which again speaks to the fact that Demons works as a really great prologue, because we get introduced to the idea of Lorian and this concept, and then the shock value of like, oh,
the
he's
reveal
an Intist.
Of this is an Intist, and his leg just stops sometimes,
which is a cool reveal from the perspective of like Hadrian growing as a person. Now is like another example of that. So again, Demons keeps winning as a short story, especially as it attaches to this novel.
I think this is actually leaning towards my thought of Queen as a better standalone short story.
Sure.
Whereas Demons should be part of this book.
Yes. I just mean like it's more and more necessary. Like it's more like,
as far as that
Demons,
goes,
Demons stay winning. Demons should be a part of this book.
Demons is chapter 1 of this book in my mind.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 1 and 2 if we're being real about it. But
do the Robert Jordan 100-page prologue. It's fine.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not? It's only 50, so yeah. Yeah.
You know how many times Robert Jordan pulled that shit off? 13.
A lot. So yeah, he does also inform the prince that he's going to be bunking with the junior officers.
He
that
does
sort
not
of sets
like
him
that.
off. No, he does not like that notion. He gets sort of the immediate characters company's read on the boy as well, which is interesting, before we finally turn to meeting Lorian, of whom you had already mentioned, Intist, tactical genius of the Red Company. Very different from like our reaction and experience with Gilliam Voss, which we talk about even more a little bit later.
If Hadrian had been in Alexander's shoes and joined a legendary half-mortal, maybe god, knight, to become his dream, and then he was like, you're rooming with the junior commanders, he would have beat the shit out of his brother and then fled on a Jadian vessel. Like, Hadrian would not have handled it as well as Alexander does, in my opinion. Alexander's like, wait, what do you mean? And he's like, you're my squire. And he's like, fine. That's such a good reaction from a god prince. Like, I actually think Alexander's being chill as hell through this whole thing. That's his big failure so far, is just being a little upset once and then saying okay.
Yeah, I would definitely say like a little upset, getting put in his place, acknowledging it, and then reacting differently. Like he is changing. He's adaptable. He's
trying to be a knight.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's definitely like a guy who showed up to like a Civil War reenactment and then is like, they're like,
wear
hey,
that?
I'm your general, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. But I also paid for this. My dad paid for this whole Civil War reenactment, but I really want to be in it. And he's like, well, then you're going to have to eat at the mess hall. And he's like, all right, well, I'm here for the experience. You know, like there's that idea of like, he could do this for a little, but maybe not for forever.
There is an impermanence to what's happening here potentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think he's handling it well-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Better than
He's
Hadrian
trying.
would have.
I would agree. I think that young Hadrian. Also, though, it's worth noting that like young Hadrian, as we see him in Empire of Silence, is not as old as Alexander.
That's true.
So, I think that
But
it's
Bailey
worthy.
and Mataro era Hadrian is about that age, and he sucks still.
Yeah, he still sucks, but I do think he would maybe be a little bit more reasonable than we're
I don't know.
portraying.
Bailey was like, "Hey, you can do literally whatever you want. Just tell me. You just gotta fuck my hot daughter."
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah,
no.
All I mean is that, like, I think that he would have been. I love to use the John Mulaney.
No.
Yeah,
I don't wanna. That sort of thing. Yeah.
there's a horse in the hospital.
Why does it know how to use the elevator? Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it could do that.
I didn't know it could do that. Yeah, so I do think that there's an element here, obviously mirroring Hadrian, but also like I think that it's important that we point out that like he has a very different approach to a lot of the things than Hadrian does. That could be based on age, upbringing, a number of things, expectations even of him out of this experience, or expectations based on being paired with Hadrian, of whom is this sort of legendary person.
And I did mention
also,
like Hadrian never had a Hadrian, so that does
right.
help a lot.
If Hadrian was with Simeon the Red or Caprian, would he have reacted differently? Cyprian,
Yeah.
sorry.
And that's very true, actually. If Hadrian was with Simeon the Red, that would be closer to this dynamic.
Right. Yes.
But I do feel like Hadrian was still better than he was in other situations, but still a little bit of I'm not going to say a bitch, but just a little bit more of a problem whenever at the ruins of Caliga, which would almost be closer. Obviously, like the people he was with Valka and, oh my God, what was his name?
Sir Elomas.
Sir Elomas, who he respected. But these still aren't necessarily heroes to him, but it is him going in and doing what he always... Oh, it's good. And all over the face. Just money shot.
You really didn't expect that. I was like, I'm going to be dramatic while Josh is talking, and now I'm wearing my beer.
By the way, for the listeners at home that aren't watching,
you heard it, but you didn't see it.
Cross just cum shot himself with a beer. Like all over the face. It was crazy.
There's a short there that exists that just keeps zooming in on that whole moment happening over and over again.
I was trying to talk about Caliga and then I got bricked up.
Well, and it was you were saying such a good serious point, and I was like, I'm just going to emphasize this dramatically with a beer can opening.
Beer. Yeah, no, basically
it took over the beat.
Hadrian had the opportunity to be a scholiast in all but name in Caliga, but he still didn't necessarily have the reverence for the people he was with that Alexander has. So I'm very interested to see where Alexander goes, but it seems like Alexander is maybe actually willing to grow more than Hadrian was. But a lot of that could be that he has a Hadrian. Whereas
is in a better circumstance because of, being with a Hadrian, to your point. Yeah. As such, though, Lorian is also suspicious as to the reason that Hadrian is playing this game by taking on the boy, and Hadrian states that there isn't a game really here, but he's stuck with needing to convince himself of that, as Lorian has cornered him with his own thought. Like, Lorian is in his head, kind of. Yeah. This is one of the things that I love about Lorian, even in this early depiction here, is that Lorian sees exactly what Hadrian is and who he is for what he is, and is like, okay, so what game are we playing here? Like, what's your angle? And Hadrian's like, there's no angle. And Lorian's like, motherfucker, there isn't.
Yeah, there is, for sure.
Yeah.
I think Hadrian legitimately believes he has to do this and there is no angle. Lorian knows that there is and is just trying to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so excited to learn more about Lorian. We don't have much to go off of here. Love him.
Outside of the fact that his dad slept with a patrician woman. We do get that.
Yeah, so his dad fucks.
Yeah.
We know that much.
Right.
And like high above his station fucks.
Right.
Like his dad pulls.
But his dad also sucks, because they do have this line a little bit later, I think in the final chapter, wherein Hadrian says that they share a shitty father in common.
Oh yeah.
Not literally,
his dad
but
probably
sucks,
but his dad's hot. and pulls.
Right. Yeah.
And now he's also got those other good genes. But then, they deteriorate and try and kill you. So now he's just stuck bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuck bad.
That's what happened to me.
Got those bad genes.
They were good at one point, I'm sure.
I mean, I shop at Levi's, and that's worked great for me. So with that, we'll go to Alone.
What? Why are you calling me out for having the hem on my Levi's, Cross? Yeah, I'm 5'6", bitch. I have to get the ones that fit my waist, and then I gotta make them shorter.
So do you shop in the kids section, or...
I can't fit in the kids section, Cross. I'm too fat.
Yeah, I know. Well, no,
Fuck
buff, ripped,
buff.
It's fine.
Just my lower stomach is just so buff. My hip section, my waistline is just fucking ripped.
Yeah, I'm not one to talk at the moment, but I'm excusing comment.
Hey, you know what?
It's just so much easier with two.
So this stays in the episode. I have to say that I don't ever want to be like a person who gets like too up in my own ass about my fitness journey. But the one time we ever hung out, I think I was 185.
Mm-hmm.
I got up to 195. I weighed myself today. I was 155.
Hell yeah.
And
Good
I
shit.
finally look like me again. And I'm 5'6", and I'm petite. So, like, I'm not saying people should be 155. That's such a light fucking weight for a man. But, like, just in general, I'm, like, finally where I'm supposed to like, be okay. And I'm feeling good, and I'm, fucking
Hell
check
yeah.
that shit out.
No,
Cut
for
the-
real.
Yeah.
It's inspiring on the other side of things, too, because, like, this year's been tough for a lot of reasons. We don't need to get into this, but I'm proud. That's cool. That's sick.
Yeah. But
Like-
also, like, to say 195 was like the big one that I went to. That's like such a normal weight.
Yeah. Right.
I just happen to be super fucking small.
Yeah.
You know? And whenever I get heavy-ish, I look like Mike Wazowski. If you're over 5'8" and you have some weight on you, you just look hot and huggable. I just don't. I look like a ball. I look like a bouncy ball. So,
Totally
Yeah.
totally get it. Totally feel you. I never felt like you looked like a bouncy ball. So
I felt like a bouncy ball. So
that's very fair. And
So-
I personally identify with the bouncy ball. So I get it.
You don't look like a bouncy ball at all. If anything, you're
No,
one
I-
of those sticky hands. But
Yeah. Okay.
so-
what have you?
which hey, I work at a pediatrics office. Everybody gets the sticky hands. Nobody wants the bouncy ball.
It's very true. The sticky hands are more fun, even
They're
though
so
they're
fun.
more temporary.
They're so good.
Yeah. Bouncy ball is forever. Sticky hands is for now, which says something about like relationships and people and object permanence.
Anyways,
I don't know.
this episode of Demon in White. Yeah.
Yeah. That said, with like Lorian out of the way and sort of that, we can move into Alone. This is a pretty quick chapter, but a fun one, I think. I'm not sure how you felt about it. I love that Hadrian back in his room undresses, and as he puts every
The
piece away,
removal's really fun.
he puts a
Yeah.
title away. You know, he like removes pretense, which I think is really interesting and also very true in his relationship with Volka. He just resumes being him in the room together, as well as sort of the pieces of their lives that are there, including like elements of Jinan, elements of like the horrors of their lives that are
I
still
like that he
there.
also looks at like the trophies he still holds for
Yes.
his lives
Yeah.
that he's lived. Like I not the life he's lived, the lives he has lived. You know.
True. Yep. I mean, in
This is
multiple
very fun.
contexts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Myrmidon helmet. Well, first off, I just love that he's like, I remove like Hadrian the Knight's this. I remove Hadrian the Lord's this.
The
I
half
remove-
mortal. Yeah.
Yeah, he removes all of his titles. He just becomes Hade.
Mhm.
And I was waiting for that. I was waiting for like, and then I just exist as Hade. He didn't say it. I'd have said it. Maybe he's a better
Mhm.
writer than me. But
Yeah.
but in my mind, he removes everything until he's Hade.
Absolutely. Yeah. He pulls everything off until that moment.
Um,
And we also go ahead.
and just the trophies that we see is like such like a cool way to reminisce about the story up to this point, but also something we talked about back on the Queen of Mid Ashes one, I think. Maybe vaguely. Good authors remind you what you need to know.
Yes, we did talk about that.
And this is
QA.
such a
Yeah.
good way to do that. This is just like a quick way to remind you who Hadrian has been up to this point
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah, you get a quick summary, especially like I think the one that stands out the most clearly, and I've already mentioned it, is like the basin from Jinan, right? That he like drops his keys in. He's no longer using it to like wash. Instead, it's a catch-all bowl for a part of him, which is very similar. Like he's not using it for its intent, but it holds
But
something
he
to
keeps
him
it.
and
It's a
for
piece
him.
of him.
Yeah. It not only holds like a memory more immediately of Jinan, but also it holds things for him. It holds a title. He can put that aside with that simultaneously to be here in the moment. I love that expression, and it's such a short chapter for like a lot of compared to a couple.
But
of
it's an important chapter for who Hadrian is, I think,
and for like his and Volka's relationship. Right, we learn more about their love together too. We learn that like Volka doesn't want to marry, but that's because she believes that the custom of marrying is silly.
And Hadrian has convinced himself he's fine with it, you know?
Yeah. And he's okay with, he's come to terms with accepting that.
He's convinced himself he's come to terms with accepting that,
Yeah. You don't think that he has? Is that the deal?
He literally says, he's like, and that's one of the lies we tell ourselves. And I'm at the end of his life, he admits to himself that he was never fine with it. But
there remains a piece of, so the quote is, we lie to ourselves all the time, but there remains a piece of us near our heart that whispers, you don't believe that. That I don't think is that context, though. I think it's, hang on, now I got to look it up.
No, it is. He's like, yeah, I was like, I'm cool with that. And then I'm lying to myself and I believed it, but.
Yeah, I mean, there are elements there that I agree with you, but I thought it was more the children thing, not the...
Which that's part
I thought it was more about the
marriage
children
thing.
So I read it as the children, not the marriage, where he was like, I can accept not having... He's like, that's the lie, in my opinion. That's what I had read, at the very least, into it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they're very tied together empirically, you know, right? Like... in order to be married, he has to get that approval from the emperor. In order to have kids, he has to get that approval from the emperor. It's all kind of one and the same to a degree. It's the life he wants.
It ties directly into marriage in that sentiment. To say that a Palatine's true relationships were had outside of marriage. I had told myself that this was better or at least good enough. We lie to ourselves all the time, but there remains a piece of us near our hearts that whispers, "You don't believe that." Yeah. Fuck. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just so good at reading.
No, you recalled correctly, and that's good. It's good to be called out because I did, for whatever reason I equated it to the children.
No, I think that children is something he doesn't actually care that deeply about, at least in this moment, maybe later. But right here, he just cares about having Valka truly his, married, like, together.
Yeah.
But that's literally never going to be okay with his station as high as he is and her having implants. Like, that's not ever going to happen.
Yeah, and he's really hoping from desire from the emperor that like maybe that could be okay at some point down the line.
But it's not. He can't even get access to the archives. He's not going to get
the Empress calls a witch consort like nothing positive.
There's no way in hell. Yeah. There's no way in Brethren's weird Virgoso's hell that this is going to happen ever.
Yeah.
Like, he saw all of his futures, and this wasn't one of them. He should probably consider that.
Yeah. Hadrian does express worry for Volka given the threat from the Empress, but she suppresses it easily and explains that he also failed to get access to the archives, as we mentioned. She points out as well that he's defending an ancient family that has it out for him as well in the family Bourbon. To her, right? This feels very relationship-y in a positive way. Like this is a relationship-esque argument.
I mean, at this point, they've been together not a year, not a decade,
like
a
50?
fucking while.
Yeah. Like 50
this
years?
is an old married couple that also still fucks. You know, like it's very cool to see him experiencing this like deep relationship with Falcon.
Yeah, and this sort of like casual argument that isn't really an argument. It's just like you recognize what you're doing.
And it also
right?
shows they've had 50 years of arguing. They know how to already preface like, here's the argument, here's your thing, here's my thing. Let's talk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we understand each other at the very least.
Yeah,
on a core level. I really love this chapter for all that it is. I don't know that I have that much more immediately to say about it. Do you have anything else you want to pull?
Not really. I mean, I think it's an easy chapter.
Yeah.
It's an easy chapter to skip over. I'm glad we talked about it as much as we did. because it's one of the better like character chapters in this entire section.
For
Like,
sure.
it is
so far.
It is such a good chapter. It's this one, and then like the last two really fucking come.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you in text that I think I listened to the last two chapters 8 or 9 times. Like, I do think that
really
this is
good.
the most that I've read any section of Sun Eater, any individual section. So, also in part because we kept putting off recording this episode for a variety of reasons over the course of a month. And that's not your fault. It's a combination of faults because I also had to travel for work and stuff like that. But so I listened again to this section, I think the most, similar to Queen Amid Ashes, just to keep myself fresh. But
yeah, I also, every time we postponed, I was like, thank God, because I had no time to read or listen. And
totally
I was like,
fine.
all right,
Yeah.
like I was gonna cram it, but oh my God, I want it. And this allowed me to actually like listen at a slower pace and like make sure.
Which
I was like,
I think
retaining,
this section demands more than most in that direction, where it's like, hey, you want to take your time, you want to kind of really luxuriate in it, because this is a slower start versus the other. Yeah, I mean, maybe Empire of Silence starts similarly slow, but maybe not quite.
But it's a lot of information up front because it's all its own thing.
It's a lot of characterization in ways that we haven't gotten.
Exactly.
Of everyone. I mean, frankly, this is the most
up a whole new kind of world, a whole new dynamic. Yeah.
This is the most character-driven book in the series thus far. You know, like, this is a switch from plot to character.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Howling Dark was Hadrian's character, but here we get everyone else's character in addition to Hadrian.
I mean, we're 9 chapters in at this point, and I'm like, this is the most it's ever felt like a truly like, what's the word I'm looking for? Multiple people who are all the main character.
Multi POV, yeah.
Not multi POV, but
deuter antagonists.
It's a simpler word. It's fine.
Okay,
we'll move on.
All right, fair. I did want to also say, just for like collective reference, and I don't want to set your expectations because I'm also interested in what you end up liking the most. But this is most people's favorite book.
I do know
in
that
this series. Yeah. And that's not to besmirch anything that comes before or after, but this is also generally hailed as like the masterpiece of the series.
I feel like I've heard this one and Kingdoms of Death.
Yeah, Kingdoms of Death is often also like,
I think
that
those two are the ones that I hear the most are like people's
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah,
it's like one or the other.
Yeah. I'm a truther on the Kingdoms of Death. Ashes of Man is a combination book, as it should be. If you count those as one book, it's as good, if not better, than Demon in White. But I do.
But I have heard like a lot of people say Demon in White fucks, and I will say in these 9 chapters, it's all set up, it's all character. Not a lot happens. It is some of the most enjoyable reading I've had in the series yet to this point. I'm really liking it already.
It's often cited as one of the greatest science fiction works of the 21st century, like top 25.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, like
Demon in White specifically.
It's cited as like a very crazy important book for a variety of reasons. So
all right.
I'm not trying to build up too much hype, but I do think that this book could be part of the reason that we're covering the series. I don't know. That's not
okay. Well, I'll say it already is reading as more maturely written, I think, than what we've had up to this point.
Yeah.
I think there was a massive jump from Empire of Silence to Howling Dark. I don't know if I'm feeling that same massive jump, but I am definitely feeling a lift.
It's more of an increment, not like a massive.
But it does already feel better, and that's with the massive jump. So
I'd compare it to like going from Iron Gold to Dark Age. Like we already had the step up from Morning Star to Iron Gold, right? Like that's a massive jump. But then Iron Gold to Dark Age is like another layer of textual consideration.
And that's actually really a good way to put it, because Iron Gold is maybe a harder read to get into.
It's my favorite book in the series, but yeah.
But there's a good reason it is. It's not mine, but like,
right.
Is it better written than all of the first 3? Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's not
like
even
by
close.
like a large margin. Yeah. I love those first 3 books. The sequel series is just so much better.
Yeah. I'm more apt, if I were to draw comparisons between Sun Eater and the Red Rising series, I'd say, okay, we're talking the sequel series, because that's in line more.
Yeah, I think those are much closer. Yeah.
Not again that we want to draw comparisons. Okay, we can move into Before the Sun Fell. Man, what a fun chapter this ends up being for a variety of reasons. This is our introduction to Gododin. Jewel bright and blue-green as Earth of Legend was Gododin, shining through the false window that fronted the Tamerlane's bridge. I stood alone on the forward observation platform, looking down and out at the planet whose orbit we had so recently entered. Tangled ribbons of cloud raked across her surface, white as snow, but for the rusty bloom of deserts here and there, her landscapes flowed like drops of Eden beneath her golden sun, a sun I would destroy.
Yeah,
like putting us on this planet, man. Like, oh, fuck.
I love this like doomed future that we all just get to live in. It's a very fun way to do the story. Introducing us to Gododin this far from the end, which I know wasn't necessarily intended to be this far from the end, but like, holy shit, it's wild to be like, and it has me wondering, like, this isn't like, this is the planet that makes the food. This isn't that important of a planet. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why did you destroy this whole system? Not just this planet. You killed the sun. Yeah, and then we go into some conversations about like North Stars and stuff. Maybe not in this chapter.
Morning Stars,
Morning Stars, yeah. Oh yeah, he starts talking about Red Rising. Like Morning Star's my favorite.
Yeah, he talks about.
I just think it's really well written. I don't think there's anything in there that like goes outside of the general like writing style of the books. I don't think he betrays like the narration view at any
never,
point in
not
this whole
even
book.
not even once to like get a
And
plot
it's
point
just,
across.
Like, really good.
For sure.
It's
For sure,
like he never like goes for a plot point over maintaining the writing style.
Yep. Never.
It's Leslie's favorite book by a lot. She fucking loves it, of the first three.
Sure.
And every time you're mean about it, I'm like, no, but my wife's right. No, Golden Sun's the best of the first three, but it's fine.
Right.
Well, maybe Red Rising in some ways, but mostly Golden Sun.
Yeah, it's mostly Golden Sun. Also, I love Morning Star. I just think that it should have been 2 books, and also he could have done that better.
And we didn't have to do the hat.
Very true. Not even that. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, it's fine. We can move on from that. Gododin, though, here and being introduced to the planetary surface therein is fascinating to me from the perspective of, hey, all this will burn. All this I will burn.
It's gone.
Right? Like,
and I like that it's not even like spoken of that much. I mean, it's reference, but it's like
this
we
one
know
time.
what Gododin is.
Right.
We know he's going to burn it. And then we go on this whole thing about like, this is where all of the food.
Here's Catraith. Here are the fields that feed the empire more widely and enable the army. Not necessarily the empire in the whole, but enable the.
This is where the rations come from. These are protein plants we're growing, grinding in a little protein
bromine
bites,
or whatever, bromine, something like that.
This is how the empire exists. This planet right here, Gododin.
Yeah, Gododin, the little food planet. It's
California.
so interesting. Not wrong in similar
not
like,
wrong
segments.
Actually.
Yeah.
It's wild that Christopher understands the importance of Fresno, California.
I do think that there's something to be said by comparison, and just to like give the North Carolinians credit here. Most of the pigs in North America and South America that get produced and harvested are made in North America, or sorry, not North America. Yes, North America, North Carolina. Like that's the number 1 food export of North Carolina is pork, by a lot. So
I'm just gonna check.
Yeah, might not be food export. It's probably meat export, but.
Because last time I checked, I think the Central Valley of California does like 70% of all food in the world. Like not some. Okay, but we're low on pig. You're right.
Yeah.
So nuts in general?
Right.
70%
entirely.
globally.
Yeah. Right.
Cows, 30% globally. More than Texas.
Yeah.
We just don't have that many pigs, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's what I was saying. I was like, pigs are, I think, number one out of North Carolina, and I think the next closest is, and I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to just say a South American country. I'm not sure which, but one of them is killing it. I think I might be Brazil or Argentina. I'm not 100% certain, but regardless, there are only a couple of other options from there. But yeah, I just view this as like hey, I see, like the way that we like capitalize in certain areas on food. That makes sense, especially if you also consider Christopher treats the galaxy map, as you probably should, very similar to the way that a lot of other authors contemplate a fantasy map. It's just that it's a lot harder to draw those lines. And so he does so by creating this planet as sort of like a central, like this is our crown lands, right? Or not crown lands. What are the grasslands called in Game of Thrones? It's not the crown lands. It's the Riverlands. Does the Riverlands produce all the food?
I don't think. No, the Riverlands are like the barrier. It's where like the high towers are from, right?
Yeah.
It has a different name, and I can't think of it. What are the Seven Kingdoms?
Yeah, right. I'm just fucking forgetting. That's the Reach.
That sounds right.
But I thought that the geographically largest second in area, fertile. Yeah, it is the Reach. The Reach is
It's the Reach.
Yeah, is like the breadbasket, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we want to think about it that way. So
yeah, the Reach.
Gododin is our Reach.
Yeah, but it's on one little planet on the edge of the universe.
Yeah, in sort of an interesting, not quite the edge. It's a central
not
edge.
An edge, but
it's an access point. Importantly,
still like 10 years from the capital.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I don't know how years and distance work in this world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Understood. But then we are greeted by comms from the surface. Corvo initially takes this, which is kind of a fun call, as Hadrian kind of sits there in the background and witnesses bits of it. Provides Hadrian some space before he shows up in the picture, to which Hadrian arrives explaining that he's here before asking to be guided away from Fort Din and instead towards the city of Catraith. And given sort of a proper tour of a real city as opposed to the empire as it exists, which is cool.
There's a lovely little moment in the scene where they ask for Hadrian and he's like, no, stretch it out. And he does like some hand signals.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me like he has fully embraced his status and the melodrama of it all. He has not abandoned. Like, he likes to make a scene. He likes to be like, no, I'm not entering the
I'm
scene
in control here. Yeah.
And he mentions multiple times in this section, especially in the back half, he hates the empire and the status and the hierarchy of it all. But he does think the control he has is tasty.
Him.
He says tasty
it.
specifically at one point. Like,
yeah, that's in Dream Evil at the very end of the chapter when he silences Osmond with a gesture.
He likes being in charge. He likes having that power.
Mm-hmm. So we then come to understand Gododin's importance in the war, as we've already talked about a little bit, and in the Empire. Great Green Planet feeds legions in the Empire. They then approach Fort Din, which is built in a seemingly brutalist style compared to the rest of the planet as it's described, before Hadrian catches that there is an orbital mirror that strengthens the power of the sun of the planet, which he feels like is, quote, what cosmic prank had bought the false sun to shine the moment I set foot on Gododin? What irony brought that false light to mark the Sun Eater's first visit to the world he would consume?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he walked in and the spotlight was like, this guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe he's imagining it different, but I think that this sets up such imagery of just him stepping on the planet and getting absolutely hit by the sun mirror.
Yeah. A cosmic prank, right? Like in so many ways where it's like, all right, you motherfucker. Like, are you trying to make me an icon, an idol? Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't have much more to say about that, but like, yeah.
I mean, the only subsequent question is like, how much of this is revisionist or real? But I think that this is probably
this one
real.
feels real to me.
Yeah.
This one feels like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because it's not him talking himself up or talking himself down. It was just like, that's crazy that happened.
Yeah. How dare it? Okay, so we come then to Dream Evil. We then come to another nondescript meeting room that we talked about a long time ago, as Hadrian even fails to remember it compared to all the others, except for its view of Catrate's streets, homes, and people among them. We catch details on the legions that had been sent to Nemavand, which we had already talked about earlier, with notes on the distress calls and the like that surround this.
Yeah, this chapter was a very clerical one for me.
It starts
just
clerical, for sure.
It very much so just starts like setting up like, here's the mission, here's what we're doing.
And I've been in
here's
1,000 rooms 1,000 times doing the same fucking thing. That's the way that
exactly.
the pacing starts. Yeah. And he's like, I can't even remember, which again is sort of setting up that an unreliable question better than some of the other things that we pointed out beforehand. This is more directly pointing out that it's like, all right, I maybe am wrong. And I think another really good example of this is with Torvero. Vero steps in a small handful of times over the course of the conversation to offer data and notes on the trips that they would have taken and the ranges that they would have lost, the sort of lost legions within. But one thing I appreciate more about them is those details is how Rocchio and or Hadrian course correct for the earlier mistakes on the rationales of Stoicism and the apatheia that they had since sort of given or like characterized within the Tor class and sort of our whole class of greenies as they were, more closely aligning it properly here, in addition to throwing in a bit of Dunish lore with sort of the human computer angles there. It's just, I knew that this was coming since we talked about it. And it's one of those things where it's like, man, I don't feel like I should probably point this out, but also it's wrong. And I know that he corrects for it in the long run, but also I have to point out that like it's incorrect considering the historical context, which can be fine if you want to be intentionally incorrect because like things diffuse and become different over time. But it's clear that he wasn't going for that. So
I have nothing to add to that.
Cool. Yeah, sick. I also just like that Varro has like is earning his spot, in some ways.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he just an information delivering device? Yes. Is that also intentionally his role, generally speaking,
That's
within the universe?
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't need to be more than that.
But I do like that like Torvaro exists in this position, and we actually get to experience like some level of specific detailing brought to this whole thing from Torvaro. But yeah, I mean, so much of this is just figuring out like where they were and where they are and where they're going.
Yeah, working out the directionality of it all. But we do get to the real fear here, which is something we had even spoken about earlier. Could it be the extras that are involved, intervened with the Cielson? And this is sort of the opposite perspective, wherein Hadrian is able to own the conversation more directly versus our conversation that happened earlier with Bourbon and Brethnak, in which he was kind of on the back foot. That would obviously be much clearer and bigger reveal had it not been for the battle we'd seen on Are and our understanding of the conflict from that perspective, as we would have only been presented with small notes on them. Again, reading Demons of Are, big deal. Sir Amalric even brings up Vergosos within the conversation, and we get kind of an update here. The Empire claims that it is destroyed, but in reality, as we find out from our communications array, they fled, and they are just somewhere else.
Yeah.
Karn is out there.
I feel like this is another, this might be the main moment where I was like, it really helps if you read Ra.
Yeah,
but because it adds to the lie of the Empire, where they're like, we don't know what the Cielson are doing. They're like, they're clearly with the Exosolarians, but then like this story being another thing where it's like they fled and it's not part of it. It builds such a view.
Yeah, it adds a layer, right?
Yeah, but damn, so they said Vergosos is dead. We know that's not the fucking case.
Yeah, right.
Couldn't be. Literally couldn't be.
Not
I would like
that.
to see the Empire try, and they have, and they will again.
The crazy thing to me isn't so much that Karn is alive and surviving on the Demiurge, perhaps,
but
it's that Vergosos is gone. Yeah.
The planet moved. You never found Vergosos. You found a ship.
Yeah. Well,
it had half
of
Vergosos on it.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, we don't actually know that anybody but Hadrian went to Forgosos. Like
Yeah,
the
Hadrian
Empire,
and the initial crew. Yeah, for sure.
like Hadrian was in a room that then ended up on a ship that it then ended up wherever fucking Manosphere was.
Yeah.
But we don't know that that was actually Vorgosos, you know?
The only thing that we really know is that we entered an atmosphere at one point that was Vorgosos, and then from there on out, it's unclear where the fuck
even
we
the
were.
planet Vorgosos was on, that's not necessarily Vorgosos.
Yeah, who fucking knows? Yeah.
Vorgosos is wherever Brethren is, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. So leads to a really interesting conversation around like truth and reality and the way that the empire seems to spread lies and manipulate reality, which makes sense for the larger groups, but also when you're working with Hadrian, it's like he knows enough to know. He also knows not to tell other people, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Which sort of solidifies his own legend in a way. That said, finally that dreaded name returns, Siriani Doraica. He'd last said that name some 12 years ago at this point. The first time he had mentioned the story, like I mentioned earlier, wasn't either of the names, either Uvenari nor Tanaran that Hadrian suggests, but Karn and then Prince Arenata, of whom said the name. And again, sort of this little casual lie that paints us this clear picture that Hadrian isn't entirely telling the truth.
Crazy. I would not have picked up on that.
Yeah.
That's something that just you had to look that up, right? No? Okay.
Well, okay, so on read today, when I was going through this for the fourth time, I went, that's not accurate. That's not right. It was neither of those people. And I put in the notes, I don't think it was either of those people. And then I went, motherfucker, I can just go look this up. And so I went to both of the books and I typed in the name, both Siriani and Doraica, and it only shows up in Howling Dark. And it first shows up when Karn is mentioning the princes that he's trading with.
That's crazy.
And then subsequently, Arenata mentions it when he's like, so I would just give up and sell out Doraica, yada, 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 with like 3 or 4 other names.
Oh, shit.
And I had mentioned that I knew that it was important when we had gone through it in the moment. And so I had written out all those names and it was like, you're not going to pay attention to the important name, obviously, and like call it out. But yeah. Doraica is the second most mentioned Cielson name up until this point. Now it's the most, but
damn,
because Arenata Otiolo was the most, and now he's dead. So
yeah, right. So we got ourselves a little bit of a diva.
We got a little diva. All right. Speaking of cut,
yes, keep going.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, speaking of diva, we get to the moment that you mentioned earlier, which is sort of the power play. Wherein Hadrian is in control, right? He silences Osmond, of whom is this director of Fort Din, with a gesture, truly showing the extent of his power within the empire.
And he's like, I don't like power dynamics, but that's so hot. Like, he's turned on by it.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
an interesting way to see Hadrian, Hadrian, who's never been hypocritical a day in his life. Wink.
Is becoming less hypocritical.
Is at least acknowledging that he's like, no, I'm into this shit.
Yeah.
Like, he loves being that guy.
Yeah. When he can.
It's interesting. Yeah.
So. When it benefits him most,
exactly.
He'll become that guy. So,
yeah,
for sure. That said, we can move into the Devil's Cohort. And man, I struggled with like where to cut this first episode to some degree, because I do think like there are stretches of me that think that I could cut this early or that this should be like the beginning of another episode. But I do think that this belongs here because I love this whole damn chapter. It feels emblematic of everything that's came before from a conversational perspective. It puts pins in certain things that like we've wanted to talk about for a long time. So I was like, we're going to go a little longer on average for the beginning of a book to try to hit this chapter because I love it.
This is the beginning of the book from my feeling, and I haven't even read the book, but
Sure. Yeah.
This establishes your future dynamics. This sets the tone, and it sets us on a journey, I think.
Yeah. And it addresses so many different things that we've talked about over the course of the other 2 books. Like we've had big conversations about sort of the perceived classism and racism, sexism inherent to like Hadrian. And he puts
Hadrian changing his mind on like
here.
half of that.
Yeah. He puts all that to rest here in so many ways that like old Hadrian alluded to or like kind of was like hinting at in some ways, but like never got to. And instead here, he just kind of hits it off. So let's start off with that. We start off with a brief conversation and a little bit of poking fun with Durand, Volka, and Krim about Ilex before Alexander responds disgusted to Krim and Ilex's relationship, which encourages Krim to step in further, putting the princeling in his place, despite his own mostly polite tone. But it also leads to some of my favorite moments for Hadrian in this, as he admits his own failings throughout the chapter and over time in many of the same arenas. He says... Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Keep going, please.
I was going to say,
actually, can I read it? Because this is maybe my favorite line.
Yeah. Yep, read it.
Yep. Homunculi were not fully human. Ilex shared as much of her human genome in common with algae and aspens as she did to men and women. But then, neither was I. Like every Palatine, Prince Alexander included, I had been born in a tank, grown to order by the natalists of the High College to produce a perfect man. This is exactly what I've been saying since Saltus fucking said it. It's why Saltus is my favorite character up to this point. Like, he's not actually my favorite character. This is a great story. I'm not fuck off about the Saltus, but I fucking love Saltus because he's the first person to introduce this concept to Hadrian, and it is maybe the most important concept that has been brought up to this point. Homunculi are people born of a tank for a role. Inherently Palatine are homunculi. They just are.
Yeah, right.
And this is Hadrian admitting that to himself and accepting it and believing it. Hadrian has come to believe what I believed in book 1. And I feel very validated.
Yeah, and I think that that's truly the intent, right? Like, I was always of like, yes, and as we had these conversations, as we were going through, is like, yes. And I think it's important to recognize that he's an 18-year-old and like a little bit of an idiot. Yes, and you were like, yeah, no, he does remind me of my conservative ass at like 14 or
and
whatever.
And he does, very much so. Hadrian growing up reminds me a little bit of me growing up. However, I don't think at any point in my 80 years of life, I'll probably go to 90 I'm Sicilian. I might make it to 100.
You're short, as well, which actually does well for lifespan.
Yeah.
You're not too short. You're properly
I'm short. I'm Sicilian, and I don't smoke. So, let's say 100, my 100 years of life.
Sure.
I don't think I'll ever do a genocide or blow up a sun. With that said, I can't promise anything. But I think Hadrian is growing in a similar way. Like, I think I can view who I was, and I don't love who I was growing up, and like understand that I went through some shit and it changed who I was, and it was
few people do.
I wanted it to.
Yeah, few people do love who they were, at the time that they were. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, but like, we experience the world through the lens of who we are up to that point. Based on how we were raised, based on what we were told about the world, and you have to go out and figure it out for yourself. And it took Hadrian a few hundred years. It took me 18 months in a college situation, but it's fine. No, it took me a while.
That's how we grow. That's how we adapt, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I always knew that this was coming, and so I was glad to engage with it, obviously from a conversational standpoint of we should be talking about this because this is, I mean, we even mentioned it at the time, but there are elements of Hadrian that were incellular in some ways, and so it's oh, you haven't seen the other side, and then he does become attracted to a Tavrosi witch in his own mind, and then that changes his opinion, and then he meets these people, and then that starts to change his opinion, and we talked about this especially in the wrap of Howling Dark of how queer it was and how some of that starts to shift Hadrian a little bit up until.
I mean, not to bring it too far back to realism, but I was raised very conservative Christian. Yeah. Marrying a bisexual baddie definitely changed my view.
On the agenda. Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. She showed up. She's like, here's the gay agenda. And I was like, oh, I like it, actually. And the people you experience and the people you come to find you love, romantically or otherwise, do change that, And so much of what I've learned is just from finding people I love in my life. that don't fit into the narrative I was taught growing up, which was very narrow.
It's
And-
also just experience with things, right? Like
Yeah.
the less you experience, the less likely you are to broaden your horizons in so many different ways, and therefore break out of whatever bubbles you might have.
Yeah, there's a TikTok comedian, and I can't like validate this person or invalidate them.
Sure.
I don't know nothing about them, but they just joke about like raising the like two jokes I've seen are about raising their roommate, and the roommate's like a few years younger than them,
Mhm.
but they're treating it like they're like this roommate's dad.
Mhm.
And they were like, we just want to raise a conscious bro. And the roommate was like, I don't know, man. To be honest, I'm scared of trans people. And they're like, oh, how many do you know? And he's like, none. And they're like, do you think that's why you're scared? And he's like, fuck, probably. And they're like, it's that easy. And that's a
Yeah.
very funny joke. Like, but it's also really real. Like at the end of the day, it's what you don't know. Get out there and learn it. Just meet some people different than you.
Yeah.
Trans people aren't scary. Meet one.
Very
They're
true.
mostly autistic. It's fine. So am I. You know?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I've not met a trans person not into trains a little bit, but like it's fine.
Come to think of it,
They're
every
always
trans
the
person that I
best
know-
coders I've ever met. I've not met one trans person who could.
That's not
a
entirely
website.
true. We collectively know a trans person of whom isn't a coder, and a good coder at that.
Well, I will
But
say
they're the exception.
and this isn't trans people specifically. There just happens to be a big crossover.
Crossover.
If a furry convention in the U.S. if there was ever like a bombing, right, the internet would go down the next day. It's
Mhm.
just 90% of the most high level coders that like keep the internet actually running day to day, like actually make sure data centers don't crash, are just trans furries. And I've met a lot of them at this point digitally, but it's true. The internet is ran by one type of person, and they're so cool.
And they're so good at fighting games. It's crazy.
And you should meet them, and you should never play Tekken.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. All of these characteristics align, and none of them
You
are
will be a lot
stereotypes.
less afraid of them in your day to day, and just afraid of them at a coin
Yeah,
op.
you will never play Mortal
like-
Kombat. Yeah, with them at a coin.
Only
op
be
day.
afraid of them at Dave and Buster's, not on the streets.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah. I think that's sort of the perspective that Hadrian gains throughout this, right, is entirely one in which like we should expect him to gain that. And I can see where a lot of people get shut off on the idea of like that being an element of character growth, because it can be very off-putting initially, especially if you don't know that this is where it's going. And I don't know that, like, especially in Empire of Silence, I don't know that it was telegraphed well enough through the story that this was the direction that it was heading. But I also myself thought that because we were bringing it up in the first place meant that we were intending to reckon with it in some way. So like,
yeah, I think I was, and I maybe someone else can go back and look at my own responses
it's
to it.
all recorded. Yeah.
I have a pretty negative feeling about how Hadrian responded to a lot of these things, but I
Mhm.
did always kind of think that the book was bringing these aspects up. And up until the point I legitimately felt like the book was endorsing something I thought was shitty, I was willing to hear it out and just see where we went. And as of right now, I think we're getting more of Hadrian understanding that other side. Yeah, I think the book is setting up questions and not necessarily answering them, but giving us time to learn with the characters.
Yeah, definitely. So we call Corvo, and it's such a small detail, but I love the spinning Ouroboros as he describes it. That's sort of in the air on the screen, as it's like clearly just like a wheel, like a general loading wheel or like a waiting wheel. It's just so silly. But they also discuss the potential of shore leaving the city while consulting Lorian on strategy. Alexander suggests a good move that gets heads moving, and Lorian barks in agreement as sort of everyone recognizes Alexander could have good ideas. Like,
yeah,
he's useful. Yeah.
I love how Alexander having good ideas. Also, the wheel. I just want to bring back way back whenever they were first leaving, like the main Imperial place.
Mhm.
Alexander tried to zoom in by pinch zooming on a window, And I think that's so fucking
oh,
funny.
You're so right. Way back when they were in the shuttle and it was just, no, this is a real window.
Yeah, there was a window and Alexander was like, zoom in, enhance. And no, that's just glass, honey.
Yeah. This is actually alum glass for once, although there are many fake displays that you'll see.
Yeah. Usually you can do that. No, this is just glass.
That's a good one.
But yeah, it brings it up to like there's these technologies we expect and don't expect. The wheel is still here.
Well, the Ouroboros, like specifically the loading, like the volleyball, like it's the loading volleyball.
It's not it's not the Apple wheel, but there is still
but it's
a
close.
spinning logo. There will always be a spinning logo.
We can never rid ourselves of the spinning logo.
Yeah.
So that said, everyone heads off in their own separate directions, except for Alexander as Hadrian pulls out his best Alistair impression, saying, "Not you," without looking at him, his eyes closed. He talks to his boy about his excellent idea with Lorian, but then quickly pivots from carrot to stick as he talks about the mistakes that he made with Lieutenant Commander Garone, of whom it is Krim, getting into 3 different details that we'll talk about here in a moment. But
yes.
Intercede.
So,
please.
to jump back, I love the idea of like we should basically do a secondary grouping that's like a bait ship that's a trap. It's a good idea from my understanding of it, which is hard to understand without really knowing everything that's going on at this point. But yeah, I mean, Alexander comes out with this idea. Everybody likes it. Generally, they kind of figure it out. They move on. The not you. And he says, like, this is
channeling my dad. Yeah.
What's his name? What's his fucking name?
Alistair?
Alistair. He's like, this is like me channeling Alistair. So hard.
Yeah.
But then he's like, I chose the carrot instead of the stick because he doesn't actually know what he's going to do right there. He compliments on a good idea. But then we pull back to where he called Ilex, like, oh, the homunculi. And I love that there's also like she's not a homunculi, she's a dryad. And he's like, that's a type of homunculi. Like, there's just all of this like back and forth. And I'm like, you're a type of homunculi. She's a dryad.
Right.
You're a palatine.
Be
you're
accurate.
all homunculi.
Right.
Yeah. If you want to start getting into the idea of if you're born from tanks or a homunculi, and there can be different names for it, but you're still a homunculi, hey, bro, you're going to have to do some internal thinking. Yeah. But it's cool that Hadrian recognizes that and then calls him out in a way that I think is actually like, okay, so we don't experience stories in a vacuum. Our real lives bleed into them. We experience them as we are where we are. For the first time ever in my job, and I shouldn't be in this position, but someone had to do it, I am training new people this whole last month.
Right.
It feels like that. You know, like, hey, I thought this way about this job, but now I think this way about it. And I just got to tell you what's going on. Hadrian is actually a decent trainer in this moment. He calls out the things you need to fix and he tells him to fix it. But also, like, he starts with a compliment and he, like, leads Alexander through what's going well, what's not going well, and then gives a path towards improvement. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. He approaches this with such a more even hand, I think, than a lot of like other people will. We evoke Alistair, but then instead, like, he does that to keep him in place. But then he approaches it very evenly, like, and very honestly, like you're kind of portraying from like a training perspective, like, hey man, you know, at first he's starting stepdad. He starts with stepdad talk, and he's like,
you're doing real good, kid.
fucking no, he's like, kiddo, sit down. That's where he starts. And then it's, you're doing great. I understand where you're coming from. You've got good ideas. Also, you were a lot racist. Yeah.
Hey, kid. I love the idea of putting grease on the wheel of the boxcar. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You can't use that word anymore.
Yeah. Grease monkey is not acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. You know which friend you said that towards.
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
And I know you maybe didn't mean it that way, but also if anyone else hears you say it,
we all noticed.
we all caught that. And also, you should never do that. And it's just great. So again, the three things that he addresses here is he says, first, they aren't my servants. Second, you are not disrespecting me at all. Third, you are not only a squire. He then proceeds to explain that he isn't there as a master and instead explains
a servant's heart,
earning respect and the difference between that and rank, and uses the example of Emile Bordelon furthering the conversation and legacy of that brute as an example, right? Saying that he was awful. He went so far as to like rape people, and that's also how he won Octavia over to his side, is being like, hey, this is not the way that we behave.
This was a great story.
We do things. Yeah.
This idea of like, hey, well, one of my favorite parts about this is the third, right? So there's three things, but the third one is you are not just a squire. You're a potential leader. And I think that is important to be like, hey, I can't treat you the way I would treat someone I was training to put on my armor. I'm here to train you to be a better person. I'm here to train you to be a leader. Here's an example of what happens whenever you're a tyrant. And
right. Yeah.
Man, I wish that was real. So
yeah. Sad. And he skips then to he skips through 2 to 3 and talks about the forms of obedience.
Yeah, I think he lists them all. I think this is the first time we've ever gotten them all listed together, maybe. But
we did once in the first book, but we don't really get them so much in a clear hierarchy and then clearly explained against each other. I think at all. I think that this is the clearest that they are at this point, finally.
And even with some question in it. And it's like, here's the explanation. Sometimes the person of the hierarchy does not serve their office of the hierarchy, you know, and so therefore it is our duty to remind them of their office.
They occupy it, but they don't actually represent it, right? Exactly. And so sort of some of those layers of failure.
God, this is such a good fucking introspection into Hadrian and all he's learned, and also just an ethos of the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is the manifestation finally of what I love about this too is it's also, hey man, this guy wanted to be a scholiast. He is a scholiast knight. That is who we are actually facing. He's
a warrior poet, right?
Yeah, he truly is. He's nailed it finally. And he gets the mythos, he gets the mythology, he gets the ideas. He's become something more than what he was before. And that's great. And it's well depicted. And I love him for it.
And in the words of Trash Boat, it's strange that every word from his mouth benefits him somehow. Another manifesto. Do you have no fucking shame?
True. True. I'm a big fan of Trash Boat. Everyone should be a big fan of Trash Boat.
Hey, if you haven't listened to Heaven... Oh God, what's the name of the fucking album?
Heaven is, man, fuck. You hadn't listened to it, right? I sent it to you and I was like, hang on.
Look for the one that says Heaven. I've been listening to that shit a lot.
Yeah, you hadn't listened to the EP, right, that I sent you?
No, not yet. Trash Boat rips, though.
Right. I'm just trying to remember which Trash Boat I was like, you haven't heard this yet? Was it Heaven or was it the EP?
I've been listening to Heaven a lot, for a while. So
okay, fair. I think it's the EP. Heaven Can Wait is the
Heaven
name
Can
of the
Wait
album.
Is the
Don't
album.
You Feel Amazing is my favorite album of theirs.
Okay,
it's in my top 50.
I'll say Heaven Can Wait is an album that has bangers and also questionable songs, but most of it's bangers. And the questionable songs are still pretty good.
Yeah.
But Better Than Yesterday might be one of the best songs I've heard in a decade.
That's fair.
I love
that you love that. I feel the same way about Don't Feel Amazing. Don't You Feel Amazing, except for my song there is a weird one. It's Love Without Needing. And I think that is one of the catchiest heavy songs written ever.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites. It's in my top 50 songs of all time. It's one of the most recent entries.
My whole thing is my favorite songs from heavier bands are usually their softer songs, and my favorite songs from softer bands are usually their heavier songs.
I think that's accurate. I agree in many cases. I think my favorite Beartooth song is King of Everything or King of Nothing.
My favorite Death Cab for Cutie song is Expo 86, and it's not heavy.
Ooh,
but it's heavier than all their other ones, you know?
Yeah, I'm 60 in Punk, I think is my favorite Death Cab song.
I mean, that's
of a more recent record. But that said, all this aside, I do think that a lot of these sort of songs evoke these sort of similar feelings where it's like there's a dichotomy within these characters, especially as they're relating to each other. There's this innate argument also that mirrors the way that Gibson and Hadrian used to argue, that is now Hadrian and Alexander having these same sort of conversations. And
Hadrian has become a Gibson.
Very true. Yeah, exactly. Again, I was evoking sort of the scoliousness of like a lot of what he's doing, but I also think beyond sort of the immediate Scolious stretch, there's something to be said about the way that Hadrian is trying to not just be contradictory like Gibson was, and instead portray a more honest reality.
And actually kind of explain the stances and not just be like an enigma. Right. I think Gibson was approaching his teaching of Hadrian in a way where he hoped that Hadrian would become a Scoliast one day. So he was teaching him like a Scoliast, where you have to find your own answers. He was purposefully cryptic.
Yeah.
Hadrian is teaching a prince who should become a knight how to be a prince knight. So he doesn't necessarily he doesn't have 100 years to teach this guy to find his own answers. He has to kind of give him a question and lead him to the answers. But it's refreshing because actually those answers should be answered. You know, Hadrian would have had a better time if he had those answers earlier on.
Yes, exactly. He can approach this from a more level-headed relationship because he also knows this is limited time frame. Gibson,
I just don't think Gibson
time.
realized that Hadrian was going to have the life he had. You know,
also true, definitely true. I think
Gibson thought he was giving Hadrian a benefit by making Hadrian find the answers on his own.
Yes, he also
didn't know what was going on.
Right, we don't know exactly what was going on, and I don't think that Gibson was wrong for doing what he did. I just think that Hadrian took those lessons and was like, "Hey, what if I could do this faster for someone?"
Yeah,
you know.
And it's probably not as good faster, but it's probably a lot better if you don't get to go be a Scoliast.
For Alexander, I think it is better though because he's more approachable. He listens more.
Alexander's
clearly.
Not going to go spend his life becoming a Scoliast, whereas Hadrian might have. You know,
right? Exactly. Very different approaches there. He then gets into my favorite bit, though, which is to speak on the second point, respecting people for who they are, which really shows, finally, that Hadrian has completed the cycle of growth on people and how to treat them that we've talked about previously. From place or station, he comes to understand what we wanted of him in the intervening years that we've missed. I don't know if you want to read this quote. I really love it. I can read it otherwise. Up to you.
Is it the Entis?
Yep.
Here we go. I definitely read this ahead of time. Entis, homunculus, plebeian, patrician, palatine. It doesn't matter. Our ancestors smashed the Maricanii and saved mankind. But we are not them and must do our own great things, eh? The others deserve their chance as well. They did not ask to be born as they are, so you and I will not punish them for it. To be a good knight, a good leader, a good man for that matter, you must judge a person by his or her actions, by their character. Do you understand?
And I just want to point out a lovely quote, especially at the end here. But it is very close to a book that I read about a decade ago, which is Rules of a Knight by Ethan Hawke, in which he says something very similar to the final set of lines. To be a good knight, a good leader, a good man for that matter, you must judge a person by his or her actions. That said, that entire book is sort of an amorphous mixing of aphorisms intended to evoke sort of similar character morales, and it feels borrowed from a lot of things. That's totally fine that it's borrowed from a lot of things to evoke that and get someone to pick up a little book of thoughts in this space. But that in particular is so close to what is written in that book, and I'm sure I could find the page specifically, but only because I wasn't at home, I couldn't open my copy because I do have a little physical copy still. But I'm confident that I could find nearly the same thing on that page. That said, absolutely accurate.
Crazy.
Exactly what we're talking about with Hadrian. This is such an excellent moment in which we kind of get to break that shell, as we've been talking about, and kind of come to realizations with him, for him, and what this looks like. You know, what does a good person, a good knight look like?
More than anything, I think that this section just really leans into the Gilliam of it all.
Well,
like,
yeah,
that's what really gets me in this section, and I think this is kind of a lead up to it, right? Like,
it is a lead up, but I do think the important thing here to send this off with is that this is saying this is a final rebuke of Hadrian of the past, right? So this is our send off of like, Hadrian is not that. That's not who he is. It's never who he wanted to be, but it is who he was then, right? And it's who
it shows the growth we have now, and we have to move into dealing with the Gilliam of it all. He still doesn't disagree with his decisions there.
Without a doubt, but it's important to paint those as different reasons, right? So the quote there,
and he says that there, he's like, well, that's not why I hated him, but he never actually like fully rounds it out to why he hated him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought he was going to say because he was an ass, but you know,
yeah.
There's an interesting couple of sentences in there where I was like, if he says because he's an ass, but then he doesn't say it, but then she calls him an ass, like right afterwards. I'm like, oh, I was right there
with the Gilliam of it all. So to give that quote, right? We, after Alexander leaves the room, we get Valka and Hadrian, and the shade of Gilliam Vast floated in the air between us, the old brute of a priest glowering with mismatched eyes. If the dead can be said to live on at all, it isn't in our memories. Thus, ghosts exist, though they are a part of ourselves. He was the first man I killed, though I had fought in Colosso for many months before that and stabbed a shopkeeper in Borisivo. I'd killed him for Valka, though she had not wanted it. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about, where it's like, she acknowledges sort of the reality of the situation in a lot of ways, but like Hadrian acknowledges specifically now that, like, yes, he still didn't like the shape of the man. Yes, he was still disfigured, and that individually horrified him, but he doesn't attribute that to Intai or Intises specifically. He's like, that is this man. It wasn't
the disfigurement. It was who he was and what he was doing.
He attributed other malice to the man, outside malice, which was beyond.
And I think that we do see from Valka's reaction that she still harbors some level of feeling towards those actions and that killing, but doesn't like hold it against Hadrian. Like, they are in love. It is.
She's
fine.
Accepted it. Yeah.
She understands what happened. It's not her favorite thing, but she understands he was a kid. You know, and also she understands the understanding behind it. She's like, I wish you didn't kill a guy for me, but hey, you know, we've moved past it.
Right. And internally in this moment, before they go off to have sex for the evening and sweat off the toxins. What? It's I mean, he does flirt.
It's explicitly
it's
said.
Great flirting, I think, on the page too. It's like a wonderful.
Do you want to sweat out the
toxins? And it's like,
the toxins.
I see what you're going for.
Pushes him on the couch and leaves.
Yeah, right.
God damn.
But he also mentions that maybe through service to the Emperor, there is a chance that he and Valka could have a child. Like, he mentally clocks this, and he's like, maybe this is our chance.
I don't think Valka wants that, but you know.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a hint either way, but I do think she doesn't want marriage at the very least. So.
It definitely sets up a scene where Hadrian has one idea of it like an imperial family, and Valka has an idea of she loves Hadrian. We also, I think, are moving into the next session dealing with there's something scary out there stealing ships.
That is the bigger question. That is the bigger lingering question that we're going to have to deal with. We've dealt with a lot of interpersonal relationships. Yeah.
Hadrian wants marriage. Hadrian wants kids. Valka does not. Ilex, still hot.
Yeah, I like still hot and messing around with Krim.
Krim gets it, dude.
Krim gets it.
Gets
maybe an assassin, maybe a former assassin, as we noted in Queen of Mid-Ashes. Yeah.
Oh my god, he kills people? Oh no.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Hot.
So
right?
hot.
For Ilex. Yeah.
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 I think Alexander's pretty fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him becoming the main villain of the story. I don't know. We'll see.
Sure.
But as of right now, I enjoy him. Little guy. Just a little guy learning stuff. Lorian? Is that his name?
Lorian. Yeah.
Lorian. Not a Lauren. Lorian.
No, different. Yeah.
Two different people, very similar names. Lorian, cool guy. I like him a lot. He's kind of my favorite right now. Could see him becoming the villain of the whole story. We'll see. Saltus.
Mm-hmm.
Little guy. Love him a lot. One of my favorite characters. Could see him becoming the villain of the whole story. We'll see.
We'll see. We're still on that train. So we'll see exactly what that train equals in the end.
I think it's gonna be either I don't remember their name, but Syracuse, the Cielson, or
Sirianni.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Seriously, the Cielson, or it's gonna be the Demon in White, Mr. Emperor,
sure. The Emperor himself. Yeah.
So there's something interesting mentioned in this section where it's like the Cielson are fire, but the Extrasolarian are ice.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel like Karn Zagara might be the ultimate enemy, or not enemy, but antagonist of this entire series.
He does cite that and very specifically says he's not afraid of fire, but he is of ice, to that degree, to the point that you're saying. Yeah.
But it's like, is Karn Zagara the antagonist of the series, or is Karn Zagara just the one thing he didn't best at the end of his life that's still out there? That's still strong?
Yeah. I mean, definitely an interesting question. In addition, one thing that I have to note on that like fire and ice thing is the planets at which the Cielson call home are ice ships, man. Like we can read it any other way, but also they're flying planets of ice. So,
but he says the Cielson are fired. That's crazy.
I know. That's what I'm noting additionally. Yeah. So with that, I think we can move into our final little bit here, which is to say next week, we're going to be reading Pinion and Claw through Lorian. Super excited to be talking next week about something that we've chatted about for a long time. I'm very, very amped. I've already
something
read it.
We've chatted about for a long time. Is Saltus coming back?
We'll see. But we've got these 7 chapters, which I'm very excited to cover. I think pretty much every other week.
It's called Pinion and Claw.
Pinion and Claw.
It's for sure Johnny, right? Like, there's no way.
There's no way it's not, Tommy. Right? Yeah.
Right?
How could it be anything else? Yeah.
That's so sick if it is Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, I'm very excited for next week. None of the rest of the sections are quite as long from a chapter perspective, so it should be like nothing gets longer than this ish. I think. This book we're taking.
We'll find a way.
Well, yeah, fair enough. I don't mean from a talking perspective. I mean from a reading perspective. Oh, we're gonna find plenty of ways. I'm not concerned. That said, very excited. Pinion and Claw through Lorian. Again, thanks for listening to this week's podcast. You can find us on social media at Words and Whiskey Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Recently been sending out more messages. We've been a little bit more active than usual, but you can also feel free to reach out to us, shoot us an email, wordsandwhiskeyshow@gmail.com. You can
if you like us and you find us on the social medias, there's a bunch of them, Spotify, Apple Music, Squadcast, maybe. I don't know.
Squadcast, we exist there. We're there.
Yeah. Leave us a 5-star review. It's really important.
Mm.
It makes sure that other people find us, and it also makes sure that we are not sad. And if you don't, we're gonna. Oh God, which one do I want to go with? How bad do I want to be?
It's up to you.
We're just gonna make sure your genes aren't very good. Your legs give out sometimes. It's not gonna like affect your job. You're just gonna have a bad time with it.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna have to ride a desk for like 15 years for like being like a fucking receptionist for
in the worst way.
Guy.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get promoted. Maybe someone will find your interest. Maybe someone won't. I don't know. But you're just gonna be like a little disabled. You're just gonna have to like live with the fact that you could just give us 5 stars and not add that. And if you're already disabled and you don't give us 5 stars, that's fine. Honestly, I love you. But if you give us 5 stars, we're gonna fix it. Me and Cross,
we're gonna do our
we're gonna
best,
get together. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna fix it.
That said, if you would like to support us, you can support us at patreon.com/words and whiskey. You can check out all the bonus content. We're beginning to talk about this next season of The Legend of Vox Machina starting next week, which will be very exciting. You can get our little preview takes if you want to hear that paired with this episode. But that said, with that, dear listener, there are endings, and this is one.
Cool.
Rad.
Dope.
See you later.
Bye.